Chapter 797. Broad Creed Mountain's Grand Elder Zhang Kuan took over Fu Enshu's duties in the vast ocean world, presiding over the vast ocean world. Over the years, Fu Enshu had brought along a group of Broad Creed Mountain disciples to reside in the vast ocean world's Changli Mountain as guests, outstanding talents, emerging in large numbers, as they had made a great name for themselves in the vast ocean world. While no more martial saints had emerged, and Yin Zhaoge himself had not appeared in the world for a long time, the position of descendants of Broad Creed Mountain in the vast ocean world was currently rather transcendent. The situation in the vast ocean martial world would change from time to time. It was already different from when Yin Zhaoge had last been here. However, to Broad Creed Mountain, this did not affect them much, as they were more like sitting peacefully at home, quietly watching the wind and rain. During this time, there were also people who returned to the Eight Extremities world, and new disciples of Broad Creed Mountain were also sent there to undergo tempering. Fu Enshu herself stood at the 9th level of the martial Grandmaster realm, the peak of the late Essence Talisman stage, and could break through to the transcending mortality stage at any time. After handing things over with Zhang Kuan, she had brought along Ing Longtu, Sikong Qing, and the other young disciples, following Yin Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone to Tribulation Wind Mountain, where the Wound of the Sky was located. The dimensional passageway leading to the Flame Devil world was sealed by the 4 of them with the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation that year, so there is no need to care about it. Instead, you once mentioned that Shunli opened a dimensional passageway at the Heavenly Thunder Hall. How is it now? Fu Enshu asked as she walked. Back then, Yin Zhaoge had made some simple preparations for that passageway, temporarily sealing it off. Afterwards, because Broad Creed Mountain's attention had been focused on guarding against the radiant light sect of the world beyond worlds, Broad Creed Mountain had never paid much attention to that dimensional passageway that might lead to a certain world. Yin Zhaoge answered, "Currently, our sect's primary goal is still to establish a foothold in the world beyond worlds. Therefore, I used this clone to reinforce the seal in the future. Unless someone whose cultivation surpasses my Northern Ocean clone forcibly opens it, it will be impossible to pass through. The natives of the 2 lower worlds rarely have such powerful existences. We don't have to worry about it for the time being." Fu Enshu nodded slowly. "This is fine as well. I heard from the second batch of disciples who came to the vast ocean world that junior apprentice brother, Yen, had once investigated the entrance. It seems to be a rather primitive world," Yin Zhaoge said. "I have heard my father mention it before. When the dust has completely settled here in the world beyond worlds, we can make some time to take a look." Other than Ing Longtu and Sikong Qing, there was also Xue Fei and Shi Jun, master and disciple. Shi Jun's mother, Ing Yuzhen, was still unconscious. Although his injuries had gradually recovered, he was still in a coma. This caused Yin Zhaoge to feel that something was amiss. Therefore, he inspected it once more. Previously, his cultivation realm was slightly lower. Perhaps there was something deeply hidden that he did not notice. As the Northern Ocean clone investigated, he finally discovered something strange. An indistinct seal could be seen in the depths of Ing Yuzhen's soul. Fearing that he had seen wrongly, the Northern Ocean clone led them all through the Wound of the Sky to the phoenix-bearing region of the world beyond worlds Royal Reed Sea before sending them all to the Spirit Inheritance region. Yin Zhaoge and Yin Di examined it as well, finally confirming that there really was a profound seal within Ing Yuzhen's soul. With the current cultivation bases of Yin Zhaoge and Yin Di, they could only barely detect the existence of the seal. Still, they were unable to undo it, also unable to investigate what exactly was sealed within. "Look at June." Yin Zhaoge and Yin Di exchanged glances, both nodding imperceptibly. After a round of inspection, their gazes were both rather solemn. There was also a seal within the depths of Shurjun's soul. Still, it was different from the seal within Ingyujin's soul. The difference between the two seals might be the reason why Shurjun had awoken normally after recovering from his injuries, while Ingyujin had remained in a deep slumber. It was just a pity that they could not tell what exactly the seal was. Yan Zhaoge frowned. It was only with his current high cultivation base that he was able to see through it. When his cultivation base had been lower in the past, he would have been unable to detect the existence of the seal at all. From this, it could be seen that the one who had set down the seal was either extremely powerful or had extremely strange and brilliant methods. When Jun and sister-in-law Yujin slept together in the ice coffin and were brought along by senior apprentice brother Shi, they should have only been moving about in the eight extremities world. They should not have come into contact with such powerful existences, right? Yan Zhaoge pondered. If their methods are too strange, it might be related to the 9 underworlds. Sadly, Shi Songtao had already been dead for many years. It was hard to know what he and his wife had experienced back then. Yan Zhaoge and Yan Di could only temporarily set this matter aside and slowly study it. Senior apprentice brother Fong. Senior apprentice sister Fu, I will have to trouble you with the spirit inheritance region of the Royal Reed Sea from here on out, Yan Di said to Fong Juan and Fu Enshu. Regarding the construction of buildings and the various other constructions, we can slowly work on them. There is also no need for us to be in a rush to expand into the outside world. It is enough for us to first stabilize our footing. If there are any matters, we can contact the North Sea Sword Pavilion and Copperman Island. Due to Zhaoge's management, these 2 major powers of the Royal Reed Sea are on friendly terms with us, being able to help each other out. They can be considered trustworthy allies. If there is a great danger or a problem that cannot be resolved, where there is life, there is hope. I can make use of the remaining heavenly connection jades to immediately return to the 8 extremities world through the wound of the sky. With Master there, it will be much safer. Yan Di said, if nothing unexpected happens, the disciples of the Southeastern Exalt's lineage in the Royal Reed Sea can be trusted. If something major happens, we can ask them for help. Fong Juan nodded. Your meeting with that Southeastern Exalt this time is very important. Yan Zhaoge looked at Xiao Ai. Xiao Ai, come with us. After leaving Golden Court Mountain, bring us along the route that my mother traveled that year. Xiao Ai answered, this maid will definitely not have a problem with that. Still, you must be prepared, young master. It is a very long journey. Yan Zhaoge smiled. I guessed it. After Fong Juan and the others had settled down, Yan Zhaoge and the others followed Qin Zhiliang on their journey to Golden Court Mountain. Before this, Tang Yonghao had already been personally escorted to Golden Court Mountain by Mu Jun, while Lin Hanhua remained in the Royal Reed Sea. Not long after, peak experts of Golden Court Mountain would probably rush over to the Royal Reed Sea to guard against their neighbors to the west. The Royal Reed Sea was the westernmost region of the southeastern Yangheaven territory, while Golden Court Mountain was in its central region. Led by the southeastern exalts Qin Zhiliang, they left the Royal Reed Sea and headed east, traversing a large amount of territory in the southeastern Yangheaven territory. Here, there was a vast ocean as well as a great number of islands. Continuing east, they ascended onto land. The land was vast, with lofty mountains and lofty ridges that were rarely visited by humans, as well as densely populated plains. The Royal Reed Sea was already much larger than the 8 extremities world. Still, in the perspective of the southeastern Yangheaven territory, it was merely a corner of the ocean to the west. Meanwhile, the portion of the ocean to the west that belonged to the southeastern Yangheaven territory was only equivalent to a quarter of the entire territory. Only now did those who had come from the Eight Extremities world have a relatively direct impression of the vastness of the world beyond worlds. With the current cultivation bases of Yen Zhaoga and the others, it could still be said to have been a long and arduous journey before they arrived at the Tao arena of the southeastern Exalt, Golden Court Mountain. To be continued. Chapter 798. Nearing Golden Court Mountain, before they had even arrived, the eyes of Yen Zhaoga and the others lit up. It was supposed to be daytime, but Golden Court Mountain seemed to be shrouded in darkness. Only, under the curtain of night, there was no dusky feeling. Instead, there were many outstanding heroes, streaks of starlight scattering down together. In the world beyond worlds, the boundary between day and night was not distinct. Starlight flickered in the surroundings from time to time, as if they were exceptionally close to the sea of stars. Looking at Golden Court Mountain, this feeling was particularly strong. Specks of starlight flickered unceasingly before the eyes of Yen Zhaoga's group, resembling a realm of immortals. Yen Zhaoga gazed at those streaks of starlight that had a profound rhythm as they streaked across the horizon, a thoughtful expression appearing on his face. I think I might know what martial art the Southeastern Exalt cultivates in. Yen Zhaoga sent a sound transmission to Yen Di, Feng Yinsheng, and the others. Yen Zhaoga rarely saw a disciple of the Southeastern Exalt's lineage clashing with someone else. Even if he did, it would only be a fleeting glimpse of it, as he had not been able to see it clearly. Still looking at Golden Court Mountain now, Yen Zhaoga had a guess. The Southeastern Exalt has always been renowned for the Tao of the sword and the Tao of alchemy. Yen Di pondered for a moment before saying, "You are referring to the legacy of the North Star Emperor? The Lord of myriad stars, the number one figure in the Tao of the Sword of Taoism before the Great Calamity, one of the four imperials of Taoism," Yen Zhaoga murmured. Whether or not it is a complete direct lineage is hard to confirm, but at the very least, it should be a related martial art. While the Flame Devil Emperor, the Thunder Emperor, and the Dim Radiant Emperor of post-Great Calamity times were all peak experts who could be called emperors, their emperor titles were only one or two words. Unlike these people, Great Emperor Ziwei's full name was Great Emperor Ziwei of the North Pole. He had always been revered as the Lord of the Stars, the Grand Master of all creations, and was one of the four imperials of Taoism alongside the Earth Empress of Sky-bearing, who was also known as Goddess Hutu. He was one of the top figures of Taoism. At the same time, he had always been revered as the number one figure of Taoism in the Tao of the Sword in pre-Great Calamity times. The three clear Grand Masters couldn't be estimated with common sense, so they weren't included. Throughout the ages, Taoism had produced many top-notch sword cultivators. Generally speaking, there were three great swordsmen who were praised by later generations. The personal disciple of the founder of the Jade Clear lineage, the Lord of Primordial Beginning, cultivated deity Yuding, the head disciple of the Prime Clear Sex ancestor, the Lord of Numinous Treasure, Taoist Plentiful Treasure, also known as the Lord of Plentiful Treasure. The third was one of the four imperials, the heaven-culminating Purple Tenuity Polaris Great Emperor. Other than that, Heavenly Lord Guangqing, Heavenly Lord Daoheng, Master Qijing Zi, Yin Zhongzi, Goddess of Turtle Spirit, Goddess Wudang, and others were all sword Tao experts. Among them, Perfected Jade Cauldron and Lord of Plentiful Treasure were mighty powerhouses of the ancient god investiture era. As time passed, they did not appear in the world for a long time. It was difficult for future generations to determine their whereabouts. It was the same for primogenitor Guangqing and the others. As for the Purple Tenuity Emperor, he was a major figure who had still been active before the Great Calamity when the Divine Palace and the Heavenly Court had ruled over the heavens and earth. Therefore, everyone was used to referring to the Purple Tenuity Emperor as the number one sword Tao of Taoism in pre-Great Calamity times. It was just that there had been no news of the Purple Tenuity Emperor after the Great Calamity. Looking at the scenes of Golden Court Mountain before him, it was very hard for Yen Zhaoge not to think in this direction. While the Great Calamity had caused a large-scale interruption in the legacies of culture and information, Yen Di and the others had all heard of the great name of the North Myrtle Emperor. Therefore, as soon as Yen Zhaoge mentioned it, slightly, Yen Di had also thought in this direction. Arriving at the foot of Golden Court Mountain, a smile appeared on Qin Zhiliang's face as he said to Yen Zhaoge's group, "Please follow me, everyone. Master has said that there is no need for anyone to send a message here. You can just directly enter the mountain." Yen Zhaoge, Yen Di, and the others all nodded. The southeastern exalt is polite. As they entered Golden Court Mountain, it was as though they were amidst starlight. Speaking of this, Golden Court Mountain is rather particular about this place. I just wonder if this Golden Court is the same as the Golden Court. Yen Zhaoge suddenly smiled. He blinked towards Yen Di, Feng Yunsheng, Ahu, and Xiao Ai. In the ancient god investiture era, Golden Court Mountain's Jade House Cave was the cave manor of the Lord of Primordial Beginning's personal disciple, the Lord of Daohang. The Lord of Daohang had a supreme treasure known as the Five Fires Seven Fowl Fan. The supreme martial arts of the Grand Xian dynasty's royal family, the Five Fires True Art, and the Seven Fowl Treasured Spear, were derived from analyzing the concept of this supreme treasure. Yen Zhaoge chuckled. When he sent King Xianwen to the southeastern Yangheaven Territory's Royal Reed Sea to set up camp, he more or less had the intention of expressing his goodwill. While the southeastern exalt himself cultivated in martial arts that were unrelated to the Lord of Daohang, having established his manor at Golden Court Mountain, there would definitely be some kinship between them. The higher the cultivation base of a major figure, the more they would care about this in this regard. Still, what I find even more interesting is that in the investiture of the god's legend, the Jade Clear bigwig, who handed over the immortal ending sword of the prime clear lineage, was none other than the Lord of Daohang. Yen Zhaoge stroked his lower chin, a hint of a smile appearing at the corners of his mouth. Hearing his words, Feng Yunsheng and the others exchanged looks. Having already heard of the earthly sovereign's decree that descendants of the prime clear lineage were not to enter the world beyond worlds, and Lin Hanhua, Yen Di could not help but raise his brows slightly. This is really too much of a coincidence. Could it be the southeastern exalt? Yen Zhaoge shrugged. As far as he knew, the numinous treasure four swords of the Jade Clear lineage had already been lost in pre-Great Calamity times. The immortal ending sword manual that Lin Hanhua cultivated and was most likely of the prime clear direct lineage. Still, it was likely not a coincidence that Lin Hanhua had become the southeastern exalt's disciple. As he had thought earlier, there should be some tacit understanding here that outsiders were unaware of. At the top of Golden Court Mountain's main peak sat a cluster of palaces. Starlight descended unceasingly from above, congregating upon the palaces as they were illuminated with a brilliant glow. The radiance was not piercing, as it instead appeared very gentle. Still, the surging power within was heavy to the point of causing one to feel suffocated. Under Qin Zhiliang's arrangements, Ahu and Xiao Ai were left outside to wait, while Yen Zhaoge, Yen Di, and Feng Yunsheng were allowed to enter the main hall. Yen Zhaoge and Feng Yunsheng exchanged glances. Knowing that it was most likely due to the extreme Yin crown and the cold sun divine saber that Feng Yunsheng had been able to enter. After entering the great hall, they saw that it was grand and majestic. Raising their heads, they saw that the ceiling was pitch black, amidst which infinite starlight flickered. Numerous stars densely dotted the area, resembling a massive diagram of the stars that enveloped everyone's heads. A purple-clothed man stood within the great hall, seeming to stand at the center of the sea of stars as he was illuminated by them. At first glance, It was hard to discern this man's age. His gaze was bright as it resembled the stars of the night sky, whilst also resembling the icy cold sword light. Seeing Yen Zhaoga's trio, he said, Broad Creed Mountain was the east peak of Taoism in pre-Great Calamity times, reigning alongside Kunlun Mountain. Now that it can be established once more, it can also be considered a joyous matter. Yen Di cupped his hands. I thank the Southeastern Exalt for your auspicious words. The purple-clothed man, before them was the current ruler of the Southeastern Yangheaven Territory, the Lord of Golden Court Mountain, the Southeastern Exalt Chao Jia. His earlier words were equivalent to him having no intention of obstructing Broad Creed Mountain from opening its doors and accepting disciples in the Royal Reed Sea. Yen Zhaoga said, In the Royal Reed Sea earlier, due to the circumstances, I was rather rash in my actions. Please forgive me, Southeastern Exalt. Chao Jia shook his head as if he didn't care. He suddenly asked, Is Ancestor He still alive? Chapter 799. Ancestor He was the expert who killed the Tao Tai and created the heaven-swallowing sword box and earth-devouring burner to refine the evil sword Tao Tai. The phoenix bone that Zhuang Chaohui yearned for was also a treasure left behind by Ancestor He. Thinking about it, Ancestor He had been active even earlier than Chao Jia. It was understandable that he had not known that Ancestor He had buried a nest in the southeastern Yangheaven territory. But now that he knew about it, he couldn't turn a blind eye to it. After all, Ancestor He's cultivation wasn't inferior to Chao Jia's. Yen Zhaoga answered, If nothing unexpected happens, Ancestor He should have already perished. It is just that I am not very clear on the exact process and location. But according to the reaction, when I refined the holy weapon, the original owner is no longer in this world. Hearing his words, Chao Jia nodded slightly, his gaze sweeping across Yen Zhaoga, Yen Di, and Feng Yunsheng. Zhi Liang once mentioned that while you obtained the extreme Yang seal, you do not know about the exalted solar luminary. Yen Zhaoga answered candidly, To tell the truth, I only heard of the exalted solar luminary's name after coming to the world beyond worlds. When I obtained this extreme Yang seal in the Eight Extremities world earlier, it was originally used to suppress a crevice to the 9 underworlds. Its original owner did not leave behind any information about it. The method to activate this treasure is something I obtained after slowly studying the treasure itself. Hearing this, Chao Jia did not say whether he believed it or not. Then, have you seen the exalted lunar luminary? Yen Zhaoga and the others similarly shook their heads. Yen Di said, The extreme Yin crown was inadvertently discovered by a martial practitioner of the original Eight Extremities world, having never come into contact with its original owner. Yen Zhaoga added, After similarly coming to the world beyond worlds and hearing about the matter of the new Kunlun 9 luminaries, we deduced that this treasure might be related to the exalted lunar luminary in comparison to the extreme Yang seal. Afterwards, we received confirmation from the Grand Xian dynasty and your disciple, Mr. Chen. Chao Jia slowly nodded, his gaze fixed on Feng Yunsheng. Little friend, can you let me have a look at your saber? Feng Yunsheng unsheathed the cold sun divine saber, passing it to the Southeastern Exalt along with its scabbard. The power of corrosion is not Keta luminary, but the power of the Rahu luminary. Chao Jia pulled out half of the black long blade and stared at it for a moment. After that, I refined the power of the sun reversal and fused the two together. My achievement might be even greater than the Rahu blade of the past. He put the saber back into its scabbard and stared at Feng Yunsheng for a while. You are not the reincarnation of a powerful master, but you were born with this saber. You are not a saber spirit either. How rare, how rare. Chao Jia shook his head, returning the cold sun divine saber to Feng Yunsheng. He didn't seem to have anything else he wanted to ask, just carefully appraising Yen Zhaoge and the others one last time. There was a look of admiration in his eyes, but he didn't try to recruit him. Chao Jia waved his hand lightly. While the southeastern Yang Heaven territory is large, you can go wherever you like. It is just that there are still some unresolved matters over at the southern blazing Heaven territory's Wudong slope. Perhaps there will be some follow-up. Feeling his intention to send them off, Yen Zhaoge and the other two cupped their hands, then took their leave. After exiting the great hall, Feng Yunxing asked rather puzzledly, "It feels like this southeastern exalt's words were not finished." Yen Zhaoge smiled. "It should be related to the immortal ending sword manual that I cultivate in." Yen Di said, "Your guess regarding Lin Hanhua should be correct." Yen Zhaoge nodded, seeing Chen Zhiliang, Ahu and Xiao Ai who were waiting outside. Knowing that the southeastern exalt had no objections to Broad Creed Mountain accepting disciples in the Royal Reed Sea, Chen Zhiliang smiled. "Congratulations, everyone." Yen Zhaoge spread open his palm, his true essence condensing to form the silhouette of a woman. "There is one more thing. I wonder if Mr. Chen knows this person?" That woman was gentle and refined, her eyes that resembled water revealing some intelligence, as well as some gentleness, as she resembled a small deer. It was precisely Meng Wan's appearance. Looking at her, Chen Zhiliang shook his head slightly. "I have never seen her before." "What? Is it someone you are familiar with, little friend Yen?" Yen Zhaoge said, "You can say that. Still, we are separated from each other. We are currently looking for her." Chen Zhiliang pondered for a moment before saying, "How about this? Little friend Yen, you can come with me to see senior apprentice brother Mu. He is very familiar with many people outside of the southeastern Yang Heaven territory. I will be troubling you." Yen Zhaoge nodded towards Feng Yunsheng before following Chen Zhiliang to see Mu Jun. Mu Jun had brought Tang Yonghao back earlier and was currently still at Golden Court Mountain, having yet to leave. Seeing Chen Zhiliang bring Yen Zhaoge over, Mu Jun's smile remained. "Little friend, Yen has already met Master?" Yen Zhaoge smiled. "It would not be good to disturb your master for too long." Mu Jun was all smiles. "Seeing how little friend, Yen seems to be in a good mood, Master must have agreed to the matter of your lineage opening up in the Royal Reed Sea. I still have to thank Mr. Mu for putting in a good word for me in front of Master." Yen Zhaoge was similarly all smiles. Mu Jun smiled, shaking his head. "Whatever Master decides, it is not up to me." Looking at Yen Zhaoge, he said meaningfully, "There is something that little friend Yen might not know yet. That old friend of yours has already officially entered my Golden Court Mountain. My master personally accepted him as a disciple. He is now my little junior apprentice brother." Mu Jun's words indeed revealed some goodwill as a reminder. Yen Zhaoge smiled. "Tang Yonghao is supremely talented and has a good character. The heavens really have eyes for him to have obtained this fortune." Mu Jun smiled, nodding. "That is true." Yen Zhaoge continued. "In coming here this time, I actually want to ask Mr. Mu about someone." After showing Mu Jun the image of Meng Wan, Yen Zhaoge observed the changes in Mu Jun's expression. After glancing at it, Mu Jun fell into deep thought. He was not in a hurry to answer, as he instead said slowly, "Junior apprentice brother Tang once mentioned this woman as well, saying that she was a fellow disciple of his in the Eight Extremities world who was taken away by Zhuang Chaohui of the southern blazing heaven territory in the underwater palace of the clear scenic region." Yen Zhaoge answered candidly, "That's right." Mu Jun fell into deep thought. Once more, after a moment, he said very earnestly, "I have never met her before, and I myself have never been to that lower world where you come from. However, looking at her, I feel that she looks somewhat familiar." Yen Zhaoge's spirits rose as a quizzical look appeared on the face of Chen Zhiliang beside him. Meeting Yan Zhaoga's gaze, which had lit up, Mu Jun said slowly, "Looking at this woman, she looks somewhat similar to someone I have met before." While Mu Jun looked young, he was actually quite old as well. The people he had come into contact with in his lifetime were innumerable as the vast ocean. Still, Meng Wan's appearance was outstanding, and those who looked similar to her would not be inferior in appearance as well. It was fine if he had not seen them before, but as long as he had seen them before, they would definitely leave some impression on Mu Jun. With Mu Jun's cultivation base, his powerful soul, his sharp hearing, his shocking memory, he would be able to search through the memories of those he had only met once. Still, I cannot be certain that there is a relationship between the two. Saying thus, Mu Jun pondered carefully for a moment before raising his hand, drawing in midair. Traces of light formed an image before Yan Zhaoga. Within the image was the figure of a woman who bore at least a 70% resemblance to Meng Wan. There really is one? Chun Zhiliang felt surprised as well. Gazing at the image for a while, Yan Zhaoga asked softly, "Mr. Mu, do you know her background?" Mu Jun answered, "Disciple of the Southern Exalt's lineage, Phoenix Ritual Mountains, Wudong Slope, Lu Xianting." Chapter 800. The Southern Exalt's personal disciple, Lu Xianting? Yan Zhaoga repeated this name. Mu Jun nodded and said, "I've only met him once. It was 30 years ago, and we didn't talk at that time." He paused for a moment before continuing. "In recent years, I have not heard any news of her, nor have I heard that she is adventuring outside. I cannot be sure if she is currently residing at Wudong Slope. My understanding of Lu Xianting is also very limited. Under the vast heavens, there are trillions of life forms. People who look alike are not rare, many of them not related by blood. Therefore, I cannot be certain that she is really related to the person you and junior apprentice brother Tang speak of. Still, I feel that she might be related to Zhuang Chaohui, taking her away for no reason at all." Mu Jun glanced at Yan Zhaoga as he said this. Tang Yonghao definitely hoped that Golden Court Mountain could think of a way to rescue Meng Wan. It was just that with the southern blazing heaven territory coveting his phoenix bone, he could not interfere in this matter, as he could only listen to the arrangements of his sect. If Mu Jun was the one making the decision, he would definitely not wish for unnecessary problems to arise. Golden Court Mountain would be able to play a great role in negotiations with Phoenix Ritual Mountain's Wudong Slope around the Phoenix Bone. Yan Zhaoga pondered. Since that is so, Meng Wan was taken away by Zhuang Chaohui, at the very least, her life not in danger. Zhuang Chaohui may have taken her away for personal reasons, not having much to do with the Phoenix Bone. Mu Jun said, "If this old friend of yours and junior apprentice brother Tang is really related to Lu Xianting." Yan Zhaoga nodded slowly. There was also the possibility of Zhuang Chaohui mistaking her for someone else. As Mu Jun had said earlier, there were many people who looked alike yet were unrelated to each other. It might just be a coincidence that Meng Wan and Lu Xianting looked alike. After taking his leave of Mu Jun, Yan Zhaoga told them about what had happened. "This is just a clue," Yan Zhaoga said in the end. "Meng Wan's situation is actually still unclear." He spread his hands. "For example, if Meng Wan's mother is really Lu Xianting, then who is her father?" Feng Yunsheng pinched her temples. "I only hope that Zhuang Chaohui will take her away and treat her well." Yan Zhaoga said, "If Mu Jun did not create this Wudong Slope disciple Lu Xianting based on Meng Wan's appearance, there shouldn't be much of a problem. Even if Meng Wan is unrelated to Lu Xianting, and Zhuang Chaohui mistook her for someone else, Meng Wan's life would most likely not be in danger. At most, she would be interrogated about me, our clan, the extreme Yin crown, and the Eight Extremities world." Feng Yunsheng nodded. Yan Zhaoga looked at Yendi. According to Xiao AI's words, Mother seems to be hiding from her enemies. We also do not know who it is that is causing trouble for her. In order to prevent this from leaking out, I did not ask those of Golden Court Mountain about her. Yendi said, "You did very well." He glanced around at the surroundings of Golden Court Mountain and said, "We have obtained the answer we want from this trip to Golden Court Mountain. Now, I will be returning to the Royal Reed Sea. You are free to do as you please, arranging your own itinerary." Hearing his words, Yen Zhaoge said, "You can rest easy. I have a rough idea of when the black hole at the bottom of the clear scenic region will vanish and when Kong Ping and the others will escape." After taking his leave, Yen Zhaoge remained on Golden Court Mountain for another 2 days as he became very familiar with the people here. When he was free, he would also inquire about where heavenly flame trees grew in the southeastern Yangheaven territory. Aside from Yendi, more experts of Golden Court Mountain indeed left Shangxi and headed to the Royal Reed Sea. That was the front line of contact between the southeastern Yangheaven territory and the southern Blazing Heaven territory. The two sides would still be fighting over that phoenix bone. Zhuang Chaohui and the others would not give up easily. A few days later, Yen Zhaoge's group took their leave of the Southern Exalt and left Golden Court Mountain. Yen Zhaoge smiled. "Xiao AI, it will be up to you now." Xiao AI said very earnestly, "Young master, it's Xiao AI." According to Xiao AI, Xue Chuqing had traveled extensively in the past, not mentioning the places she had visited alone, just traveling with Xiao AI by her side. They had already been to many places. These included not just the various places of the world beyond worlds, but some extra-dimensional spaces as well. Xiao AI had even accompanied her to descend to a lower world before coming back up again. The dim, radiant mausoleum was one place, and there were a few other places within the southeastern Yangheaven territory as well. One of them was even not far from the Royal Reed Sea, as it was to its south. Yen Zhaoge's group set off from Golden Court Mountain, searching for them from near to far away. Sadly, there were no more clues left behind in these places. Yen Zhaoge was actually most interested in Kunlun Mountain of the central Junheaven territory. His intuition told him that his mother had likely been born there, and that he would be able to find valuable clues there. Still, firstly, it was too far away, and secondly, the environment there was complicated. Xue Chuqing might also be being pursued now. If he rashly went there, he might fall right into their trap. After thinking about it, Yen Zhaoge decided to give up on this very attractive idea. "Young master, we should be in the vicinity of the Setting Sun Archipelago after a while." Who shaded his eyes with his hand, gazing into the distance. Yen Zhaoge held a skewer of meat as he sat on Pan Pan's back, saying nonchalantly as he ate, "Strictly speaking, we are already within the domain of the Setting Sun Archipelago." They had already been traveling for over half a year. They did not waste any time as they cultivated, as they traveled. Pan Pan had already awoken from his slumber, having successfully refined the Taochie's demonic heart and demonic blood. The Setting Sun Archipelago was located in the southwest corner of the southeastern Yangheaven territory. To the north and slightly west was the Royal Reed Sea. This was also a portion of the southeastern Yangheaven territory's western region of sea. While it was called an archipelago, the islands were actually very large as they practically resembled numerous small continents squeezed together. The land of the Setting Sun Archipelago occupied a greater area than the sea. According to Xiao AI, Xue Chuqing had once lived in seclusion on one of these islands for a period of time. Heading southeast from here, they would officially be on land. There was the Jade Sun Mountain Range, where heavenly flame trees grew. Yen Zhaoga intended to first visit his mother's old residence before heading to the Jade Sun Mountain Range to investigate matters related to the heavenly flame trees and the encompassing abundance golden pill. Young mistress, your culinary skills are really good. Xiao Ai was currently seated beside Yen Zhaoga, her hands moving left and right as she ate happily, a wooden skewer in each hand. Feng Yinsheng was also holding a skewer as she smiled as she ate. It's good that you like it. A large pot hovered in the air before her, blazing flames blazing beneath it as a mouth-watering fragrance emanated from the boiling soup within. Several dozen skewers were pierced through and placed by the side of the pot. Feng Yinsheng casually picked one up, throwing it forward. The skewer fell in an arc as Pan Pan below turned his head, opening his mouth wide, and directly swallowing it as his eyes instantly narrowed in joy. Who was also holding a skewer of meat as he chuckled as he ate. This place neighbors the Royal Reed Sea. News of the Royal Reed Sea has already spread over here. Young master, you can be considered a celebrity here. Yen Zhaoga asked excitedly, Oh, what did they say? To be continued. Chapter 801. Basically, they are all words of praise for you, young master. Ahu chuckled. Promising at a young age, possessing outstanding talent, and transcending mortality and entering sainthood at a young age. You are also powerful, slaying many experts of the same cultivation level, even surpassing levels to slay experts of a higher cultivation level. Wreaking havoc in the Royal Reed Sea, even the Grand Xian dynasty, with numerous immortal bridge martial saints, was unable to do anything to you, as they were instead left in a sorry state by you, young master. Not having reached the seeing divinity stage, you possess a high-grade sacred artifact, and are even able to wield it. Also, you are highly regarded and appreciated by the Southeastern Exalt, being on very good terms with the Shadow Mountain Sword King Lin Hanhua, who counted on his fingers. There are many guesses about your origins. Some say that you are an unorthodox cultivator from a lower world. Some say that you are actually the descendant of the exalted solar luminary of the legendary 9 luminaries, thus being able to possess the supreme treasure, the extreme Yang seal. There are also some who say that you are actually a disciple of the Southeastern Exalt, having finally entered the world of mortals. Anyway, there are all sorts of opinions, each holding their own opinions, as no one is able to convince the other. Ahu smiled. Still, whatever the case, young master's current fame is already not just limited to the Royal Reed Sea. Yen Zhaoga listened intently as he was all smiles as he stroked his lower chin. Yes, not bad, not bad. He turned and said to Feng Yinsheng, Yinsheng, you should bring out some treasures at a time like this. Seeing his smug look, Feng Yinsheng could not help but laugh, just like a big kid. Smiling, she shook her head, entering the myriad dragon palace. In the depths of the palace was a massive cage with a massive beast within, its eyes flickering with a bloodthirsty light as it emanated a ferocious aura. This massive beast resembled a deer, yet was not a deer, resembled a wolf, yet was not a wolf, as it dragged a tail that resembled a python behind it. It was a demonic beast known as Maoyang that Yen Zhaoga had inadvertently encountered while roaming the southeastern Yang Heaven territory earlier. It was extremely brutal and fed on humans, as it was a great demon that rampaged through a region. This Maoyang that was currently caged possessed a powerful fleshly body that was comparable to a martial saint. However, in the cage, Yun Liang's aura had become much weaker. When it saw Feng Yinsheng come in, its body trembled slightly. Feng Yinsheng did not look at it. She walked to the side of the cage, where there was a huge block of ice. There were some white objects frozen in the ice. They looked like small pieces of broken bones. Feng Yinsheng carefully unsealed one of the bones and took it out. Looking at her movements, the well-trained tail subconsciously shrunk. Feng Yinsheng took the bone fragments and walked out of the myriad dragon palace, continuing to shatter them into even smaller fragments before throwing a small portion of them into the pot. Almost in an instant, the aroma from the wok became even more intense, causing the half-full crowd to salivate. As for the remaining bone fragments, Feng Yunsheng pierced them with a few skewers and started another fire to roast them. There had actually been 2 Mao Liang that had attacked Yan Zhaoge, and the others back then. One of them had been slain on the spot by Yan Zhaoge, while the other had been captured alive and imprisoned. The joints of this Mao Liang had some tiny cartilage that was most delicious when used for cooking. Receiving the roasted bone skewer, Yan Zhaoge bit off a piece of cartilage as he clicked his tongue in praise. Coming all the way here, this thing is still the most delicious. Feng Yunsheng smiled. It's good that you don't mind my cooking methods being crude. She loved to eat, and was also a glutton. Still, because of her experiences of adventuring alone in her youth, she was used to using the simplest and quickest method to cook for herself. Yan Zhaoge shook his head. As long as it tastes good, who cares how it's done? Feng Yunsheng was all smiles as she ate a bone skewer, a satisfied look on her face. As well, one never gets tired of eating fine. When we settle down, I want to properly ponder on this, also seeking out famous experts to learn from them. Yan Zhaoge nodded repeatedly. It's good to be motivated. As they chatted and laughed, a massive island had already appeared where the sea and the sky intersected in the distance. The island was so massive that it filled one's field of vision from afar, resembling the coastline of a continent. The few large islands of the Setting Sun Archipelago were actually not that different from small pieces of land. As Yan Zhaoge's group came ashore, Pan Pan's figure began shrinking before he leapt into Feng Yunsheng's embrace, dozing off lazily. Lady once lived here in seclusion. Still, that was already a few years ago, Xiao AI said as they walked. Yan Zhaoge asked, You once mentioned that Mother would occasionally return to a place she had been to before. Xiao AI nodded. That was the case twice. Still, this maid cannot say for sure whether she will return here. Yan Zhaoge strode forward. Let's take a look first. This island was known as the Whale Region. There was a majestic city on its coast known as Whale Fishing City. The main power developing here was a family that was commonly known as the Xie family of Whale Fishing City. Their head, Xie Liang, was an expert who had already transcended mortality and entered sainthood. Still, an important reason for the Xie family being able to reign supreme over Whale Fishing City and the surrounding territories was that they were backed by the ruler of the Whale region, the Whale Breath Sect. The Whale Breath Sect was a massive entity of the entire Setting Sun Archipelago, roughly equivalent to the status of the North Sea Sword Pavilion and Coppermen Island in the Royal Reed Sea. The Xie family did not just occupy a single city in Whale Fishing City. There were also many cities of various sizes in the vast region surrounding Whale Fishing City. While they were not as massive as Whale Fishing City, they were still within the Xie family's sphere of influence. At the same time, the city was close to the sea, and the products of the nearby vast region of sea were traded with merchant ships. The Xie family had developed here as well. Xie Liang was the city lord of Whale Fishing City, but he was actually equivalent to the ruler of a nation. After entering Whale Fishing City, Yan Zhaoge followed Xiao AI around. When they arrived at the place where his mother Xue Chuqing had once resided, they saw that it had long since been flattened and rebuilt with other structures. Looking at the majestic tavern that was bustling with people, Yan Zhaoge lightly rubbed his temples. From the looks of it, even if Mother has returned to Whale Fishing City, she will have to find another place to stay. Ahu blinked. Young master, what do we do now? Yan Zhaoge said, Since we're here, let's go in and take a seat. We can also ask around and see if Mother has returned. Ahu asked, Should we go ask Xie Liang directly? No need for that. The fewer people who know about mother's matters, the better. Yen Zhaoge waved his hands. Even now, I still don't know who exactly she has offended. They entered. The business within was very prosperous, as the entire 9-story building was filled to the brim with customers. Occasionally, there were empty seats, but they were reserved in advance by others. Who went to deal with it, and Yen Zhaoge did not ask too much about it. A moment later, a waiter came over and bowed, inviting Yen Zhaoge's group into a private room to be seated. The cultivation bases of those here were relatively low. Yen Zhaoge even saw some martial artists who had not even successfully cultivated in their orochi, and were not even martial scholars. Over the past half a year or so, Yen Zhaoge had seen many such ordinary martial practitioners, and even mortals who did not cultivate in martial arts at all along the way. At the start, Yen Zhaoge, who had come to the world beyond worlds to fight his way there, and had been constantly interacting with Lin Hanhua, Kong Ping, and Luo Ziyuan, had even felt like a lifetime had passed. Only after having seen more of them had he slowly gotten used to it. With Yen Zhaoge's current cultivation base and hearing, he would still be able to clearly hear the conversations of these martial practitioners with lower cultivation bases, no matter how low their voices were. It was just that Yen Zhaoge himself was willing to do so, who knew that just as he sat down, he would hear his name being called. To be continued. Chapter 802. I really wonder where this Yen Zhaoge came from, actually being able to create such a great disturbance. The name of those of the Royal Reed Sea has even spread to our setting sun archipelago. As his own name suddenly entered his ears, Yen Zhaoge blinked, concentrating slightly as he listened earnestly. Beside him, Feng Yinsheng, Ahu, and Xiao Ai exchanged looks. The cultivation bases of the speakers were that of an outer aura martial scholar and an inner aura martial scholar. Beside them, there were also a few body refinement realm martial artists, presumably their respective juniors. That outer aura martial scholar said, "While the solar luminary young master is young, he is already an expert who has transcended mortality and entered sainthood. It is best not to call him by his name." You are right. That inner aura martial scholar's tone was rather lacking in confidence. Isn't this because he is currently only at the merging avatar stage? The outer aura martial scholar said, while some believe that he needs to step into the immortal bridge before he can bear the title of solar luminary young master, at the very least having to attain the seeing divinity stage that is only relative to experts of the same level as him. Our small lineage and our cultivation bases are shallow. It is best that we remain respectful at all times. Do you know that your words today will definitely not reach the ears of others? The inner aura martial scholar opposite him nodded slowly. That is true. I was rash just now. Yen Zhaoge stroked his lower chin as he listened. Ahu chuckled, sending via sound transmission, "Young master, this solar luminary young master refers to you, right? You have truly made a name for yourself in the world beyond worlds now." Feng Yinsheng smiled. "It is most likely because of the extreme yang seal. Many people also guess that you are a descendant of the exalted solar luminary. The Kunlun 9 luminaries were actually relatively foreign and distant to the people of the current world beyond worlds. Most people did not even know of their existence. Back in the Royal Reed Sea, there had been many who did not understand this. It was still the Grand Xian dynasty who had first pointed this out. Thereafter, the name of the exalted solar luminary, Gao Han, which had been sealed in history, resounded once more. From a certain perspective, Yen Zhaoge had helped the exalted solar luminary regain his fame. After asking around and understanding some general information, they discovered that Yen Zhaoge was actually related to such a long and powerful legendary figure. In turn, they became even more interested in Yen Zhaoge. Both sides boosted each other's reputation, causing it to spread wider and wider. forming an explosive speed. There were many speculations regarding Yan Zhaoge's origins, but his identity as a personal disciple of the 9 luminaries was undoubtedly the most legendary. A mid-merging avatar martial saint wielding a peak sacred artifact, like the extreme Yang seal, was extremely eye-catching. Therefore, this theory was the most widely spread in the market, and many believed in it. Many people believed that it was the most authentic rumor. As a result, even as Yan Zhaoge's name spread far and wide, some began to call him the Solar Luminary Young Master. As a result, even the few martial scholars here were able to discuss a little about Yan Zhaoge and the exalted Solar Luminary. Actually, it would be better not to bear this title because it is not the truth. Yan Zhaoge curled his lips. Also, I feel that something is a little off. Ahu realized, "Young Master, you mentioned before that someone in the world beyond worlds seems to be diluting the legend of the Kunlun 9 luminaries of the past. The current situation is equivalent to doing the opposite. This way, it seems like someone is doing this intentionally, making use of young master's fame, while secretly having other plans." Yan Zhaoge shrugged. It might just be a coincidence, but it is not impossible. He had never feared thinking of others with the greatest evil intentions. Now, he heard someone say from outside, "Still, I really never thought that the Solar Luminary Young Master would actually come to our Setting Sun Archipelago and to the whale region, to Whale Fishing City at that." Huh. Hearing these words, Yan Zhaoge was instantly taken aback. What's going on? Feng Yunsheng, Ahu and Xiao AI were all taken aback as well, as they had been traversing the Setting Sun Archipelago. Enveloped by Yan Zhaoge's true essence, he had been able to influence the minds and senses of others, for those whose cultivation bases were insufficient. Even if Yan Zhaoge swaggered over right in front of them, it would be very difficult for them to notice him, let alone recognize him. It was not that he was invisible. Instead, the other party would unconsciously overlook Yan Zhaoge, feeling that he was someone whom they did not need to pay much attention to. As long as Yan Zhaoge was willing, he could throw him into a crowd of people and vanish at any time. It was just that with Yan Zhaoge's flamboyant personality, he would never do such a thing. This time, it was because he was searching for his mother, Xue Chuqing. Due to the unique circumstances, Yan Zhaoge had been keeping a low profile. From the looks of it now, however, he had actually been discovered. It was fine if he had been discovered by others. However, it had already reached the point where Yan Zhaoge himself had not been aware of it before. This was a problem. Yan Zhaoge could not make heads or tails of this, as he swiveled his head to look at Ahu. Ahu shook his head like a rattledrum. "Young master, I was very careful. I definitely did not expose your tracks." "That's strange." Yan Zhaoge had a puzzled look on his face as he temporarily suppressed his doubts, continuing to listen to the conversation outside. The other side of the conversation said, "The Solar Luminary Young Master might be touring the world. It would not be strange for him to come to the Setting Sun Archipelago. Since he has come to the whale region, he would naturally come to Whale Fishing City to take a look. After all, there are many unique products here, and the shipping trade is also developed." There was a young man sitting at a table next to the few people who were talking. This youth had a fierce expression on his face as he clenched his fists on the table, veins bulging on the back of his hands. Irrepressible rage could be seen within his gaze, as he could not help but yell now, "What Solar Luminary Young Master? He's just a scoundrel who does all sorts of evil deeds just because of his cultivation base." As soon as his words left his mouth, the surroundings instantly fell silent. The two sides who had been conversing frowned. "Aren't your words a little too much?" The youth said coldly, "A lustful person who forcefully abducted my wife just because of his cultivation base, a tyrannical person. Even if he really is the disciple of the exalted solar luminary, he would really be a disgrace to his legendary reputation, bringing shame to a supreme treasure like the extreme Yang seal. Within the elegant room, Yen Zhaoge, who was currently drinking tea, nearly spat it out. Feng Yunsheng, Ahu, and Xiao Ai were all rendered wide-eyed and tongue-tied as well. Pan, who had originally been lazily looking like he was in a deep sleep, suddenly opened his eyes as well, staring wide-eyed. The people outside were all inexplicably shocked. "Is what you say true?" That youth said in embarrassment and exasperation. "He has even brought my wife to this whale-fishing city now, even becoming a guest of the Xie family. I am just about to go and expose his true face right now. I heard that longtime experts of the whale breath sect have also come to visit the Xie family. I really want to see if that surnamed Yen can conceal the heavens with a single hand, if there is still any justice left in this world." Someone glanced at him, saying, "It looks like you are not from Whale Fishing City, still not knowing the biggest news of Whale Fishing City right now." 3 people claiming to be the solar luminary young master just happened to have arrived at Whale Fishing City one after the other. Today, they are going to be confronted. "I wonder which one of them abducted your wife." That youth was dazed. Within the elegant room, Yen Zhaoge covered his face with his hands. This old man is really F***ked this time. Chapter 803. Men fear fame just as pigs fear being fat. Yen Zhaoge rubbed his cheeks. All sorts of monsters are popping out. Beside him, Feng Yunsheng and the others all had strange expressions on their faces. Yen Zhaoge rolled his eyes. "Laugh if you want. Holding it in harms your body." Who instantly grinned, while Xiao Ai was filled with righteous indignation. "Someone is pretending to be young master." She paused for a moment. "Even if young master really snatches men and tyrannizes women, it should be impossible for us to not know about it, having always been by your side." Feng Yunsheng had originally still been able to hold it in. Still, hearing Xiao Ai's words, she instantly looked like she could not help but laugh as well. In her bosom, Pan's eyes were narrowed into the shape of crescent moons as he clapped his front paws before his chest as if he was clapping. Yen Zhaoge curled his lips. "Come on, if I really wanted to snatch men and tyrannize women, wouldn't I get the Northern Ocean clone to do it?" Xiao Ai stared wide-eyed, only saying after a while, "That's right." She sneaked a glance at Yen Zhaoge. "Young master, are you the one they are talking about outside?" Yen Zhaoge rolled his eyes. "Guess." Even as they bickered within the elegant room, they were still eavesdropping on the conversation outside. That youth was clearly caught, rather unawares. How could there be 3 Yen Zhaoges? This is the other party's side. Last night, someone claiming to be the solar luminary young master appeared in Whale Fishing City, directly entering the Xie family manor. Afterwards, he was received courteously by the Xie family, who knew that another solar luminary young master would appear in the middle of the night last night. The 2 sides instantly got into a dispute, each accusing the other of impersonation. Just as things were getting out of hand, a 3rd actually popped up this morning. Things are getting really lively now. The speaker shook his head repeatedly. The Xie family head has ordered people to search for anyone who has personally been to the Royal Reed Sea or seen an image of the real solar luminary young master. The 3 solar luminary young masters all claim that they are the real one. In the end, it was decided that they would confront each other in public at noon today to determine who is the real one. As he said this, he stood up and walked out of the wine house. Speaking of which, the hour is almost here. I was intending to go watch the fun. Anyway, there were a lot of people at the side. They all stood up and said, "It's almost time. Let's go, let's go." A kind-hearted person at the side said to the young man, "Out of the 3, 2 of them are definitely fakes." Perhaps all of them are fakes, but there is also a chance that one of them is the real solar luminary young master. You should come along as well. If it is the work of a fake, tarnishing the name of the solar luminary young master, the real one will definitely not let the matter rest. He will definitely seek justice for you. The young man came back to his senses and calmed down. He nodded and said, "All right." Within the elegant room, Yen Zhaoge revealed an expression that looked like he was smiling whilst also not, his fingers toying with the already empty teacup. Ahu said excitedly, "Young master, let's go and have a look." Yen Zhaoge said, "No rush." A silhouette flickered, the Northern Ocean clone appearing within the room for an instant before vanishing. Yen Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. Interesting. What kind of good feng shui does this whale fishing city have, actually simultaneously attracting 3 fakes? If it was just one person using a false identity and pulling a tiger's skin, there was a possibility that it was a scam. However, 3 of them had appeared at the same time, and they had gathered in Whale Fishing City at almost the same time. This meant that the 3 of them were likely here for the same goal. Coincidentally, they had all chosen the same method. As for why they had wanted to impersonate him, Yen Zhaoge felt that the 3 of them were actually more interested in the rumored fact that he was extremely friendly with the Southeastern Exalt. Over half a year ago, Yen Zhaoge had not had to wait outside Golden Court Mountain, as he had directly entered the mountain. Afterwards, he had even been escorted out by the Southeastern Exalt's personal disciple, the seeing divinity Marshal Saint Chen Zhiliang. This treatment had already gradually spread throughout the Southeastern Yang Heaven territory. Regardless of how much speculation there was regarding Yen Zhaoge's background, it was an indisputable fact that he was greatly admired by the Southeastern Exalt. In the Southeastern Yang Heaven territory, most of the time, this was actually equivalent to a command talisman that allowed one to travel freely and unimpeded. The smaller the place, the greater its effect. Logically speaking, it should actually be very difficult to impersonate you, right? Feng, Yinxing asked. After all, a young martial saint like you is definitely rare. I even feel that it is one of a kind. With such ability, he himself would be a renowned figure. Why would he need to impersonate someone else? Who scratched his big head. Could it be someone of the southern blazing heaven territory? It would not be easy for them to traverse the southeastern Yang Heaven territory. Yen Zhaoge said, "Both are possible. While it is not difficult to deduce a person's true age, it is not always successful. I know at least 2 methods that can be used to falsify this. As long as the other party's cultivation base is not too much higher than yours, it would be very hard for them to discern your true age. There had once been fake prodigies and geniuses whose true age was actually not young. However, they had falsified their age in order to gain the respect and respect of others, thereby profiting from it. Still, limited by the difficulty of the materials and technique, such things were still relatively rare. Also, there was the risk of them being exposed. Who pulled back the corners of his lips, saying as he poured more tea for Yen Zhaoge. Still, these 3 fellas are really audacious to the extreme. Having bumped into each other, they even dared to confront one another. While others did not know whether the 3 of them were real or fake, they were naturally aware that they were all fakes. Feng Yunxing said, "Perhaps it is precisely because there are 3 of them that they are all so confident. If there were only 2 of them, they would inevitably feel guilty and short of breath at the thought that the other party might be the real one. However, with 3 of them appearing at the same time, it was possible that all 3 of them were fake. This gave everyone the courage to gamble. If they could suppress the other 2 fakes, they would be the real one for the time being. As for the other 2, if one of them was the real Yen Zhaoge, there was nothing they could do about it. Having already met on a narrow path, they could only grit their teeth and walk on, with no room for retreat. Because the 3 fakes have met, the people of Whale Fishing City have become suspicious as they have begun searching for images of me with all their might. The three of them all appear to be very confident, wanting to confront one another. Actually, they are also being forced to fight for the initiative. Yan Zhaoge reached out with his finger, drawing a circle in midair. His true essence surged, forming an image of light which displayed the scene that the Northern Ocean clone was seeing. Many people had already gathered outside the Xie family manor, all of them here to watch the show. Still, while it was said that they were going to publicly witness and confront one another as the lords of Whale Fishing City, the Xie family was naturally not a place where just anyone could enter. Only the leaders of powers of Whale Fishing City, who possessed a certain level of status, could enter the manor. Even more people were waiting outside the manor for news. Waiting for news in a wine house was the same. Still, those who wished to watch the show would always hope to receive news as soon as possible. The Northern Ocean clone was not in a hurry as he did not enter. His gaze swept over, directly penetrating through the defensive formations of the Xie family manor and seeing the situation within. There was a group of people seated in 4 different directions, with those of the Whale Breath sect and the Xie family seated on the main seats. There were also groups of people in the other 3 directions. Still, the most conspicuous of them all were the 3 young-looking men. To be continued. Chapter 804. Among the 3 young men, 2 of them were dressed in white and blue robes, while the other was dressed in black. Seeing this, Yan Zhaoge and the others all curled their lips. This bastard, not even willing to spend a bit more effort to impersonate. He was dressed in white with a blue robe with black borders. He was young and flamboyant, possessing a handsome appearance, as he carried the supreme treasure, the Extreme Yang seal. This was basically the most widely circulated image of Yan Zhaoge in the outside world. Even if there were some discrepancies, it was still mostly based on this foundation. The 3 people in front of him could all be considered handsome. Hi. Xiao AI was excitedly giving marks according to her own standards when she suddenly froze. She stared wide-eyed at the image for a long time before suddenly turning her head to look at Yan Zhaoge beside her. Her movements were so violent that she almost twisted her neck. Feng Yunsheng and Hu were also astonished. Yan Zhaoge narrowed his eyes into slits. Interesting. Within the silhouette of the 3 people impersonating Yan Zhaoge, 2 of them aside, one of them simply seemed like Yan Zhaoge himself as he sat there. As a result, Feng Yunsheng, Hu, and Xiao AI were all taken aback at first sight. Looking carefully, they saw that the other party's appearance was virtually exactly the same as Yan Zhaoge himself. Because he was seated, his physique was not easy to compare. However, at a rough glance, he was virtually the same as Yan Zhaoge's. The 2 of them looked like they were made from the same mold. Only through careful observation would one be able to discover that this person's expression, as well as some minute habits of his, were different from Yan Zhaoge's. But this fake was almost to the extent that it could be mistaken for the real one. Only people like Feng Yunsheng, who frequently interacted with Yan Zhaoge and were extremely familiar with him, would be able to see through it. If this fella were to head to the Royal Reed Sea now and walk in front of Gu Hong, Gong Sun Wu, and Zhou Haoxing, if Gu Hong and the others only looked at his external appearance and did not carefully sense the fluctuations of his true essence, they would probably be deceived. Meanwhile, in the setting sun archipelago, a place that was completely foreign to Yan Zhaoge, even with images of light as a comparison, no flaws could be seen. Looking at this person, Yan Zhaoge chuckled. That's good. This is what it means to be fully prepared, loving your line of work, and possessing the spirit of professionalism. At this moment, Yan Zhaoge really felt a little interested. Therefore, he did not get the Northern Ocean clone to directly barge in. instead continuing to remain outside the Xie family manor, smiling as he watched this great show unfold. At this moment, in the Xie family's residence, family head Xie Liang, who was sitting on the main seat, looked around and said in a deep voice, "My Xie family should be honored by the presence of the solar luminary young master. However, the current situation is a little unclear. I wonder if the three of you have a way to teach me?" On his left was a tall and skinny young man dressed in white with a blue robe on the outside. "I have nothing to teach you, Patriarch Xie," the young man said faintly. "If you have any questions, you can come to Golden Court Mountain, and you will naturally have your answers." He was fiddling with a jade pendant in his hand, its lustrous luster flashing on his fingertips. Xie Liang's snow-white eyebrows slightly trembled when he saw the jade pendant. This person was the first to arrive, claiming to be Yan Zhaoge. While Xie Liang did not recognize him, he recognized that the jade pendant in his hand was precisely of Golden Court Mountain. Yan Zhaoge's close relationship with Golden Court Mountain was already widely known. While Xie Liang was unable to completely ascertain the authenticity of this person, he possessed a treasure of Golden Court Mountain, no matter what, and was also a mid-merging avatar martial saint. At the end of the day, he could not afford to slight him. Since his appearance and cultivation base were similar to that of the rumored Yan Zhaoge, Xie Liang first arranged for him to stay in a private room of a wine house, who said, "Young master, that jade pendant of his seems real. I have seen more than one Golden Court Mountain disciple wearing it." Yan Zhaoge nodded. "It should be," who asked curiously, "Wouldn't it be fine if he directly pretends to be someone of Golden Court Mountain then?" "That jade pendant is a symbol of identity as a disciple of Golden Court Mountain. There is a special verification method that requires the true essence or aura chi of Golden Court Mountain's direct lineage martial arts to be infused within. The jade pendant will then undergo a special change," Yan Zhaoge said. This person had most likely inadvertently obtained the jade pendant. Still, he had been unable to pass himself off as a disciple of Golden Court Mountain with it. While it was rumored that Yan Zhaoge was a disciple of the Southeastern Exalt, it was only a rumor at the end of the day. It could also be explained why he did not know Golden Court Mountain's direct lineage martial arts. Yan Zhaoge's relationship with Golden Court Mountain was pretty good, having obtained such a jade pendant. It would also be logical for him to roam the world under the Southeastern Exalt's care. It was precisely because of this that Xie Liang believed him for the time being, who knew that a black-clothed man would soon come knocking, actually calling himself Yan Zhaoge as well. That black-clothed youth was currently seated to Xie Liang's right, facing that tall, thin youth who held the jade pendant. The black-clothed youth smiled disdainfully. "Trying to prove your identity with just a single object? What a joke!" The tall, thin youth opposite him said mildly, "The extreme yang seal is a great treasure. How can it be shown to others lightly? This Yan's extreme yang seal would be seeking to take someone's life. If you doubt this, can you take out the extreme yang seal for everyone to see?" The black-clothed youth chuckled. "Fakes are fakes, only knowing how to put on a show. You have the extreme yang seal? I'm just sitting here. Why don't you send your extreme yang seal towards my head?" That tall, thin youth swiveled his head and glanced at Xie Liang. "With the host here, this Yan cannot be disrespectful." The black-clothed youth stood up, laughing loudly towards the heavens. "Disrespectful?" He glanced sideways at Xie Liang and the others, appearing haughty and haughty. "Allowing these two fakes to act like dancing clowns in front of me is already the greatest disrespect that you, the host, can have. I, Yan Zhaoge, have never changed my name. When have I ever had to prove my identity to anyone? How laughable! I have remained here just to see what these fakes can do, daring to impersonate me." The black-clothed youth pointed at an old man beside Xie Liang. Give the whale breath sect some face. Otherwise, just based on you comparing me to these two fakes, and even doubting me, I will directly tear down your Xie family. Do you think that I cannot do that? The old man beside Xie Liang, who was precisely an elder of the whale breath sect, frowned slightly upon hearing his words. The solar luminary young master dominates the royal reed sea. My Xie family naturally cannot afford to offend him. Xie Liang was not enraged upon hearing his words. If you wish to flick your sleeves and leave, this old man would be terrified and dare not utter a single word of complaint. That black-clothed youth chuckled coldly. There is no need for you to hide a blade behind your smile. I know that you think that I am feeling guilty and embarrassed into anger, that I am just bluffing, right? He pointed at the tall, thin youth before him, smiling. It is true that the extreme yang seal is my treasure. Still, since when did I have to rely on the extreme yang seal to claim someone's life? You say that I am a fake and you are the real one. Let's have a contest then. Everyone had originally thought that the side with Golden Court Mountain as a witness should be the real one. Otherwise, not only would they offend Yan Zhaoga, they would offend Golden Court Mountain as well. Now, however, seeing how domineering and confident that black-clothed youth was, everyone's hearts thumped once more. Yan Zhaoga was famed for his outstanding talent and domineering strength, as he was virtually invincible amongst those at the same cultivation level. To a certain extent, it could really be said that whoever was stronger was more likely to be the real one. Within the private room of the wine house, Yan Zhaoga gnashed his teeth. You really know how to have fun. Chapter 805. In the house, the black-clothed youth finished speaking, and without hesitation, he directly punched the tall and thin youth in front of him. The entire Xie family manor, perhaps even all of whale fishing city, seemed to tremble. However, the power was quickly restrained and concentrated on a single point. Its target was the tall, thin youth alone. Around this tall, thin youth dressed in white and blue robes, there were many martial practitioners of whale fishing city who had been permitted to enter the Xie family to bear witness to this matter. The instant the black-clothed youth attacked, they felt an intense fear envelop their hearts. It was as if all of them were about to be killed by a single punch from the black-clothed youth. However, after the power of the punch was concentrated on a single point, the crowd relaxed. However, they still could not see the black-clothed young man's movements clearly. Everyone's heart trembled. He really is an expert. The Xie family head Xie Liang and the whale breath sect elder beside him were both experts of the martial saint realm. Even they felt their vision blur at this moment. They knew that even if they joined forces, they wouldn't be able to withstand a single punch from the black-robed young man. Could it be, just as these thoughts flashed through everyone's mind, they suddenly saw that the scene in the field seemed to freeze. The black-clothed youth, whose movements and figure could not be seen clearly, reappeared in everyone's line of sight, as if he was frozen in midair. The tall and thin young man calmly raised his hand and stretched out his palm, blocking the black-clothed young man's earth-shattering punch. If this punch had been used to attack Whale Fishing City, then, apart from the Xie clan's residents, the entire city would have been destroyed. If they concentrated their forces on the Xie family's mansion, the mansion might also be reduced to ruins. However, such a punch was easily blocked by the tall and thin young man. The black-clothed youth was shocked. He immediately changed his move, but his opponent was faster than him. After slapping his fist away, his palm changed into a finger and pointed at the space between his eyebrows. The black-clothed youth was forced to raise his head and retreat. His opponent pressed forward step by step, and he immediately switched from defense to offense. His palm momentum was like a continuous river under the heavy pressure. The black-robed youth's strength began to slacken, and he found it difficult to retract his own strength. The berserk quintessence turned into strong winds that started to spread in all directions. This was the aftermath of this horrifying storm. Anyone below the martial sage realm would die if they were hit by it. However, the tall and thin young man dressed in white and blue robes was able to firmly restrain and suppress these gales under the envelopment of his palm, causing them to be unable to wreak havoc in the surroundings. What was even rarer was that his every move was natural and well-organized. He was like a famous actor in a drama. Although he spoke quickly, his words were clear, allowing people to hear him clearly. The onlookers, as long as their cultivation reached the great Grandmaster realm, could clearly see his every punch and kick. However, it was precisely this seemingly slow movement that firmly suppressed the black-clothed young man's punch that was originally as swift as the wind and lightning, causing his opponent to be completely unable to react to it. It forced the black-clothed young man to slow down just like him, and in fact, even slower than him. At this point, it was clear who was superior. No matter how bad the surrounding spectators' eyesight was, they could see that although the black-clothed youth was domineering and arrogant, and even more confident in taking the initiative to challenge his opponent, it was clear that his opponent was stronger. This tall, thin young man seemed calm, and even seemed to be short of breath and guilty. He seemed to be trying to shirk responsibility, and yet he was terrifyingly powerful. Right now, he was fighting the black-clothed young man with ease. The tall, thin young man pinched his fingers, and after suppressing the black-clothed young man's fist with his palm, he suddenly pointed a finger at the black-clothed young man's lower abdomen. Finally, like a rising flood, it broke the dam that was blocking it. The collapse of a 1,000-mile dam was caused by an ant's hole. A tiny crack first appeared, and then the entire dam could only helplessly collapse. With his lower abdomen hit by a finger, his opponent's breath instantly dissipated. The tall, thin young man gained the upper hand, and immediately followed up with another palm strike. The black-clothed young man was knocked back by this palm strike, and his cheeks flushed red. Finally, he could not hold back any longer, and a treasure light flashed on his body, helping him to block the enemy's further attack. He now knew that the enemy in front of him would not make a move, but once he made a move, he would make a killing move. After being hit by a finger, the black-clothed young man had actually already lost, but his opponent's palm strikes formed a chain, clearly intending to directly kill him. Low-grade sacred artifact. The tall, thin young man in white and blue robes bombarded the treasure light with his palm, causing it to shake and shatter. Still, the black-clothed young man made use of this chance to swiftly dodge backwards, finally escaping from that perilous situation. He was finally unable to hold it in any longer as he spat out a mouthful of blood, his crimson face instantly turning pale. The tall, thin young man finally ceased attacking now. Appraising him, he said calmly, "This yen said that when the extreme young seal makes a move, it will take someone's life. I never said that you would live if I made a move." The black-clothed young man's expression was rather dispirited, frustration flickering within his eyes. He could clearly see the disdain and doubt in the gazes of those around him. Relying on his cultivation base and strength, he had made the first move. Yet, in the end, he had suffered a crushing defeat. Even as he had been utterly humiliated, he had also admitted it without being pressed. How could someone like this be that solar luminary young master Yen Zhaoga, who had rampaged through the royal reed sea? You impersonated this yen. This matter will not end just like that. Still, as this yen is currently residing here as a guest, I do not want to dirty my host's home. I will allow you to live a little longer." Saying thus, the tall, thin young man turned and nodded slightly towards Xie Liang and the others. "My apologies." The surrounding people discussed. So powerful, yet so humble, truly the air of a famed expert. It looks like this is indeed the true solar luminary young master. That's right. How would those with strength need to constantly flaunt themselves with words at all times? Like I said, with a token of Golden Court Mountain, how could it be fake? In a private room of a wine house, Feng Yunsheng burst out laughing. The real this Yen would not be so humble. Yen Zhaoge was surprised. Do you really think that this guy is being humble and reserved? While I cannot confirm the martial art that he cultivates in, I can tell that he is intentionally concealing it as he has been holding back, lest others see through his background. In other words, there are people in the Setting Sun Archipelago who might recognize the martial art that he cultivates in. Therefore, it is because of this that he is able to hold back as much as possible. Yen Zhaoge's words had yet to land when the whale breath sect elder seated beside the head of the Xie family, Xie Liang, who had not spoken all along, suddenly raised his white brows as he gazed intently at the tall, thin youth who had just achieved a complete victory. This young master, Yen, this old man has something to ask of you. This whale breath sect elder pondered for a moment before saying, the martial art that you executed just now, from what this old man saw, was rather similar to the unique martial art of the vast origin old man of the Jade Sun Mountain ranges overlapping Dragon Peak of the eastern continent, Finger Palm Mountains, and rivers. He gazed at that tall, thin youth. This old man is untalented. Many years ago, I left the Setting Sun Archipelago to roam the lands. I once went to the Jade Sun Mountain range and just happened to see the vast origin old man in action. The tall, thin youth said mildly, it is indeed the Finger Palm Mountains and rivers. Still, a so-called unique martial art might not really be unique. This Yin knows many martial arts. This whale breath sect elder was silent as he pondered. Now the third, Yen Zhaoge, who had been watching smilingly by the side, all this while smiled and sighed, pretty brilliant. Still, it should end here. He stood up, walking neither hurriedly nor slowly towards that tall, thin youth. Chapter 806. This Yen Zhaoge appraised the tall, thin youth before glancing at that black-clothed youth, smiling, not bad, a little stronger than this. He paused for a moment before adding, what I'm talking about is not your cultivation base, but that you at least know how to find a set of decent clothes and dress up like me. Still, you seem to only know the rough concept of white clothes and blue robes, not knowing what kind of white clothes my white clothes are, and what kind of outer robes my outer robes are. In a private room of a wine house, Ahu curled his lips. This guy really dares to talk. His clothes are only roughly similar, with the details being different from yours, young master. Yen Zhaoge said, rather interestedly. He should have seen an image of me before, thus being able to roughly imitate my clothes. However, what I'm more interested in is how did he disguise himself to be so similar? Generally speaking, it would be very hard to hide one's appearance from the eyes of a martial saint. Within the Xie family manner, that Yen Zhaoge said smilingly, a lot of martial arts, why don't you display them for us to see, seeing whether you really have learned the strong points of many or only know that single finger palm mountain river martial art. The tall, thin youth said mildly, that will have to depend on whether you have the ability or not. The other party smiled. Sure. Before his words had landed, the index and middle fingers of his right hand formed a sword, stabbing directly towards the tall, thin youth's throat. That tall, thin youth similarly pointed out with a finger, not substituting a sword with his finger, but instead resembling a rising mountain peak. The two met attack with attack, the first move already erupting with true fire. However, the tall, thin youth's heart shivered. He had originally been confident that his finger would arrive first, even though it had been unleashed later. However, as their cheese clashed, he discovered that he was actually half a beat too slow, with the other party's sword fingers first piercing through his throat. The tall, thin youth's gaze turned solemn as he executed a palm art with his other hand, resembling a great river sweeping over in an endless stream, its momentum surging. However, the other party's sword fingers rode the wind and broke through the obstruction of his palm all the way. The tall and skinny young man's fingers and palms moved at the same time. His fingers were like lofty mountains and dangerous peaks, while his palms were like rivers and lakes. His true essence surged, and his martial Dao true intent manifested, instantly creating mountains and rivers in the void. Mountain ranges stretched on endlessly, and great rivers surged, encompassing the entirety of Whale Fishing City. The massive, majestic city seemed about to be temporarily separated from the Whale Region Island, from the heavens and earth of the world beyond worlds, falling into an independent spatial world. In a world of mountains and rivers created by the martial arts displayed by the lanky young man. In an instant, the Xie family residence and Whale Fishing City were lit up with formation runes, crisscrossing above the city. The city guarding formation was activated immediately, preventing the lanky young man's power from affecting the entire city. However, when the mountains and rivers that seemed to be the size of an entire world came crashing down, the protective array formation immediately shook, and the array patterns shattered one after another. Fortunately, this tall, thin youth's true target wasn't Whale Fishing City or the Xie clan residence. Otherwise, this place would likely have been razed to the ground. However, the array was almost unable to withstand the aftershocks of the typhoon. However, at this moment, everyone knew that the tall and skinny young man was no longer holding back. He was going all out. This was because his current opponent was completely different from the black-clothed youth from earlier. Yet, facing such a ferocious attack, his opponent just smiled nonchalantly. The sword's momentum changed slightly. What did not change was the unstoppable momentum of the sword, not halting in the slightest as it hacked through the mountains and rivers before it. A bloody hole was directly pierced through the palm of the tall, thin youth by his opponent's sword fingers. Wisps of sword chi emanated from his fingertips as he continued forward. Within the elegant room of the wine house, seeing this sword chi, Yan Zhaoga's gaze suddenly flickered. Within the Xie family residence, the tall, thin youth felt helpless as he retracted his other hand, as well meeting his finger with his own. The next moment, fresh blood splattered everywhere as the index finger of this tall, thin youth was shockingly hacked off by the sword chi. The scenes of mountains and rivers that enveloped Whale Fishing City were instantly extinguished and vanished, the heavens and the earth regaining their original state. The tall, thin youth staggered backwards, a bloody hole appearing at the center of one of his palms, while the index finger of his other hand was directly severed, fresh blood dripping from it. His opponent smiled. What is real cannot be faked. What is fake cannot be real. You are unlucky, coincidentally running into me while impersonating me. Otherwise, you really might have been able to deceive some people. As he spoke, this third, Yan Zhaoga, attacked once more, rapidly closing in on that tall, thin youth. The tall, thin youth still wanted to resist. Yet, as his figure flickered, he let out a tragic groan as a tragic wound appeared on his chest as he toppled backwards onto the ground. While the cultivation bases of those present were insufficient, Yan Zhaoga was the only one who could clearly see that this person was holding on to a jade necklace as he retracted his finger after slashing his opponent. The expression of that tall, thin youth finally changed. Yet, before he could speak, the other party smilingly attacked once more. This time, his throat was slashed with a single sword. The tall, thin youth clutched his throat, yet was unable to utter a sound as his body slowly slumped over. Xie Liang was shocked, saying, "He is Golden Court Mountain's jade pendant at the end of the day." That third, Yan Zhaoga, smiled. While the jade pendant is real, it is an inanimate object that can be stolen and snatched. It cannot prove anything at all. He is also not of Golden Court Mountain's direct lineage. even if he is acquainted with people of Golden Court Mountain would not blame this Yen even if I killed him for impersonating me. Shocked by his momentum of killing someone on the spot, everyone was rendered speechless. What is everyone thinking that if another fake were to appear now, yet be able to defeat this Yen, wouldn't it be him who is real and me who is fake? As he said this, he instead gazed at that black-clothed youth. The black-clothed youth was shocked. The other party smiled. Come, don't you want to have a taste of the extreme young seal? Show me your head, and this Yen will fulfill your wish. As he said this, streams of sunlight actually lit up on his body, the blazing, tough power of the sun illuminating the entire city. Xie Liang and the others exchanged looks. This person's earlier words were exactly what they were thinking. Still, from the looks of it now, they could not help but believe most of it. Now, Xie Liang's expression suddenly changed slightly as he seemed to have secretly received some sort of notification as a hesitant look appeared on his face. That third, Yen Zhaoge, smiled. What? Has the person family head Xie sent to search for my image returned? Let him in. I've said it before, it cannot be fake. Xie Liang clenched his teeth. The three of them all called themselves the Solar Luminary Young Master, possessing incomparably great strength, as Whale Fishing City would not be able to stand against any one of them. This was especially so for this third person who was extremely powerful. If he was not being exposed and enraged, the consequences would be inconceivable. Still, seeing how confident this person was, Xie Liang still waved a hand. Bring him in. A moment later, someone walked in. Family head Xie Liang yelled in a low tone, "Show him." That person nodded, retrieving a jade talisman and infusing his true essence within. A silhouette was instantly projected from the jade talisman. Everyone held their breaths, staring fixedly at the silhouette. After the silhouette had condensed, Yen Zhaoge's features were revealed, which were exactly the same as the youth present. Everyone simultaneously exhaled, no longer having any doubts within their hearts. So, this was the real deal. Xie Liang and that whale breath sect elder hurriedly got up and bowed. Please forgive us for our earlier rudeness before the Solar Luminary Young Master. The other party smiled. The ignorant are not guilty. Having never seen me before, you were inevitably deceived by others. It was only because I heard that there were two fakes here that I came. Now, he was suddenly taken aback. An extremely powerful aura directly crushed down on the Xie family manor. Everyone stared dazedly at the Northern Ocean clone as he strode in. The Northern Ocean clone said nothing more as he drew a circle of light in midair, forming an illusory scene of light. Within the image, Yen Zhaoge sat leisurely in a private room of a winehouse. Chapter 807. Within the room, Yen Zhaoge sipped on his tea, smiling as he watched all that was happening in the Xie family manor. At this moment, everyone in the Xie family's mansion was stunned. Just now, everyone had confirmed it without a doubt, feeling that this third, Yen Zhaoge, should be the real one. His strength was outstanding, causing others to sigh in admiration. No matter how arrogant and confident the black-clothed youth was, no matter how calm the lanky youth was, however, when they faced the third person, they were utterly defeated, and it was difficult for them to catch up to him. It was said that the Solar Luminary Young Master Yen Zhaoge possessed extraordinary strength and was a supreme genius who far surpassed many experts of the same cultivation level. However, most people had no idea how strong it was or how strong it was. Based on everyone's knowledge and experience in the Xie family's mansion, they all felt that this third person's strength should be the limit. Yen Zhaoge's high-grade sacred artifact, the supreme extreme Yang seal, was a topic that could not be avoided. To a certain extent, his current reputation as the Solar Luminary Young Master in the southeastern Yang Heaven territory mostly stemmed from the extreme Yang seal. No matter how unyielding and combative that black-clothed youth was, no matter how reserved that tall, skinny youth was, they ultimately did not reveal the extreme Yang seal. They had already been battered to the point where their heads were bleeding and even on the verge of death, yet the extreme Yang seal had never appeared. Just this alone was enough to prove that Zheng Ming and the others were fakes. Yet, while the extreme Yang seal had yet to appear on the body of this third, Yin Zhaoge, that blazing, tough, majestic power of extreme Yang was something that no one could imagine other than the extreme Yang seal possessing. If these two factors were still insufficient for everyone to confirm his identity, following the image of Yin Zhaoge that the Xie family had obtained, the matter had become indisputable. If Xie Liang and the others had long since possessed an image of Yin Zhaoge when the first fake had come knocking, they would have been able to see through it. The first person to come knocking, Xie Liang had ordered people to search for images of Yin Zhaoge's circulating images. Back then, it had only been for the sake of identifying the real number one person. Who knew that two Yin Zhaoges would appear one after another? However, fortunately, the item was found in time, and it completely proved that the third person was real. But what was going on now? Xie Liang held his forehead, feeling that there really was something wrong with the feng shui of his whale fishing city. Looking at the two identical Yin Zhaoge, Xie Liang's throat turned dry. The two of you, this Yin Zhaoge of the Xie family manor, had originally always been confident in his way of doing things, casual and carefree. Now, however, a solemn look surfaced within his gaze, especially as he faced the Northern Ocean clone, who was not concealing his powerful aura in the slightest. Just as he was about to say something, Yin Zhaoge had already spoken mildly. "Evil creature, why don't you reveal your true form?" Hearing this, everyone in the mansion was stunned. The word vile spawn didn't seem to be used purely to curse someone. The other party's expression changed. Just as he was about to move, the Northern Ocean clone directly extended a hand, pressing down with a palm. That person turned, wanting to flee. However, the Northern Ocean clone's palm seemed to envelop the entire sky, enveloping the great earth, as no matter where he fled to, he was still beneath that palm. As the palm descended, it was as if a mountain was pressing down on him. The cold light on his opponent's body was piercingly cold, and an earth-shattering sword light shot up into the sky. This was the power of a mid-grade sacred weapon. As a merging avatar martial saint, he possessed a mid-grade sacred artifact. The Northern Ocean clone's expression was steely as the light of the precipitous golden armor on his body flickered, suppressing that mid-grade sacred artifact that was still unable to exert its full power. The roiling power of extreme Yang erupted from this person's body, all-encompassing golden light illuminating all as he seemed to have transformed into the extreme Yang star, actually possessing some of the might of the extreme Yang seal. While the extreme Yang seal was nowhere to be seen, a blazing sun pattern appeared on his forehead. This was the source of the blazing power of extreme Yang on his body. At this moment, he no longer cared about exposing himself, as he only hoped to be able to flee from the Northern Ocean clone. Still, while he was powerful and possessed the majestic power of that seal, he was still no match for the current Northern Ocean clone. The difference in strength between the two was incalculable. The Northern Ocean clone's palm flickered with light that seemed able to contain the heavens and the earth. Obstructed by the sunlight, it merely paused slightly before continuing to descend. The other party exerted all his might, yet could only watch helplessly as the Northern Ocean clone's palm enveloped him. The Northern Ocean clone slammed this fake into the ground with a palm, yet the Xie family manor and whale fishing city did not seem to shake in the least. His control over his strength had already reached the pinnacle, even seeming to be at ease with it. Everyone in the manor, instead, felt a little numb at this moment. These people, one slapping another to death, did not even know when this would end. Now, Would a newer one jump out and slap the one before them to death once more? Still, seeing that the third person was unable to produce the extreme young seal, yet had a seal that flickered with sunlight on his forehead, everyone gradually understood. This one was fake as well. Still, was the one who had emerged victorious the real one? As had been said earlier, could it really be that whoever was stronger was the real one? This was especially so for the later one who had not even personally acted. Everyone was at a loss now. However, as the Northern Ocean clone retracted his palm and everyone gazed over, they all exclaimed in shock, "What is this?" On the ground where the Northern Ocean clone's palm had originally covered, that fake was already nowhere to be seen. However, his corpse was also nowhere to be seen. There was only a massive beast there that was currently on the verge of death, limp and powerless as it sprawled on the ground. This massive beast resembled a deer, yet was not a deer, resembled a wolf, yet was not a wolf, as a tail that resembled a python dragged along behind it. Its originally ferocious aura was now only weak and dispirited. What was eye-catching was that there was clearly a sigil on the beast's forehead that flickered with a faint golden radiance. The radiance was blazing hot and tough, clearly the power of extreme yang. That whale breath sect elder was stunned. This is a Maoyang? Seeing the sigil of sunlight on Maoyang's forehead, everyone was dazed, only reacting after a long time as they all erupted into an uproar. That person just now was this Maoyang that had taken human form? You don't say. There were often such legends in ancient times. Someone retorted, for a beast to take human form, this cultivation base should not be sufficient, right? I've heard of Maoyang before. While its intelligence is not low, it is not proficient in transformation. Someone else said that is not necessarily the case. There are greater demons, and there are also lesser demons. Greater demons depend on their cultivation bases. It is said that some lesser demons have some unique, fortuitous encounters, consuming some spirit flowers and herbs, thus being able to take human form as well. From the sigil on its forehead, it should not be wrong, right? I can't tell if it is the same or not. Someone came to a realization. I understand. This sigil was left behind by the extreme young seal. Just like how a master stamps a mark on his livestock to mark his ownership, this Maoyang is the real solar luminary young master's mount or tamed spiritual beast. It transformed into a human form and fled, but it pretended to be its master to deceive others. Someone asked doubtfully, then his martial arts were originally imparted to him by the solar luminary young master? Everyone nodded. It really looks like that is the case. The solar luminary young master has sent someone to clean up his mess. No wonder he would say, "Vile creature, show your true form." Chapter 808. Within the room, Yen Zhaoga said mildly, "My clan's discipline was not strict enough, alarming you all. I hope that you will be magnanimous enough to forgive me." Xiao Yang and the others hurriedly said, we dare not. They were still rather dazed at this moment, not knowing how exactly they should interact with Yen Zhaoga. The Northern Ocean clone reached out once more, keeping the dying Maoyang on the ground before retrieving a jade necklace. The jade necklace flew into the air, arriving before Xiao Yang. Yen Zhaoga said, "This Maoyang of my clan was disloyal, even impersonating me after fleeing, ruining my reputation. First not mentioning this. The other two have both come for this item. Now, it shall be returned to its rightful owner." Xiao Yang received the necklace rather astonished. This indeed belongs to my Xie family. I had not thought that it would actually be on this person. Thank you. He spoke rather hesitantly, really having been scared by the successive fake Yen Zhaoga. Seeing the necklace, Xiao Yang finally understood why those people had come earlier. That tall, Thin youth who had first arrived at the Xie family had previously been shown some of the treasures of the manor by him. This jade necklace had most likely been swapped at that time, and the one currently stored in the treasury of the manor was most likely a fake. Afterwards, that tall, thin youth had been killed, and the jade necklace had also fallen into the hands of his killer. Now, it had been seized by Yan Zhaoge and returned to him. Xie Liang repeatedly checked it, confirming that what he was currently holding was the real thing, and not a fake that had been swapped yet again. It was just that in Xie Liang's impression, while this necklace was precious, even he, as its owner, did not know what value or secret it contained that was worth so many people going to such great lengths to obtain it. He looked carefully at Yan Zhaoge. While the one before him seemed the most authentic, who knew if he might have some other intentions as well, who knew that Yan Zhaoge would nod towards everyone in the manor. With this matter already concluded, this Yan will take his leave. Do as you please. Saying thus, the image of light directly vanished. Xie Liang and the others were dazed once more. Yan Zhaoge had no intention of coming to the Xie family manor at all, not even intending to converse with them. Xie Liang swiveled his head to look at the Northern Ocean clone. He saw the Northern Ocean clone striding towards that black-clothed youth after keeping Zhe Liang away. Although the black-clothed youth was arrogant, he did not dare to act rashly. He had a feeling that the Yan Zhaoge this time was probably real. First, not speaking of the fact that he had finally been caught in his impersonation, the Northern Ocean clone before him was a seeing divinity martial saint expert. That terrifying aura caused the black-clothed youth to be unable to breathe. The Northern Ocean clone said mildly, "I can feel that there are some living people within your accompanying shadow shrinking pouch." That black-clothed youth was taken aback. As the Northern Ocean clone pressed down with a palm, he was unable to move as the shadow shrinking pouch was already in the Northern Ocean clone's hands. As soon as the pouch opened, several figures flew out and landed on the ground. They were beautiful women. Xie Liang and the others were stunned. The Northern Ocean clone now opened his palm, a figure appearing on his palm, leaping onto the ground. Everyone in the mansion looked over curiously. It was a young man. This young man was only at the Grandmaster realm. No matter how they looked at him, he looked very ordinary. Still, he had been brought in by the Northern Ocean clone. No one dared to underestimate him. That youth was still rather dazed now, as if he was in a dream. However, as his gaze fell on one of those women, his expression instantly changed. That woman had a blank and panicked expression on her face. Meeting his gaze now, she immediately cried out in shock. The two tightly embraced each other. The Northern Ocean clone's expression was calm, devoid of joy or sorrow as he lowered his head to look at that black-clothed youth, continuing to exert force with his palm. The black-clothed youth instantly emitted a tragic howl, the bones of his entire body virtually all breaking apart, his meridians destroyed, and his internal organs shattered. His true essence transformed completely into vitality before dispersing from the acupoints of his entire body. The powerful life force of a martial saint prevented him from dying within a short period of time. Still, his cultivation base was already completely crippled, his power completely gone. The black-clothed youth only felt like he was better off dead than alive. He would rather have been slain with a single palm. The Northern Ocean clone could completely slay him with a single palm. Yet, he had just allowed him to linger on at death's door. An even more bone-piercing chill arose in his heart. Indeed, he heard the Northern Ocean clone say, "You can decide how you want to deal with this person." Hearing his words, the eyes of the young martial scholar, who had reunited with his wife, instantly reddened. After consoling his wife a little, he strode over. Even though he was a martial saint with a crippled cultivation base, his essence, chi, and spirit had yet to completely dissipate. glared furiously at by the other party. The youth, who was only a martial scholar, could not help but tremble. However, the fury and hatred within his heart suppressed his terror and panic. He abruptly roared, simultaneously striking out with his palms towards the other party. Seeing this, the Northern Ocean clone nodded slightly. "You do have some guts and backbone." Having avenged himself, that young martial scholar was momentarily at a loss for a time. Still, he quickly recovered this time and knelt down towards the Northern Ocean clone. "Thank you. Thank the solar luminary young master for upholding justice for me." His wife hurriedly knelt down as well. The other women all knelt down simultaneously as well. However, by the time they raised their heads, the Northern Ocean clone had already vanished. Xiao Yang and the others watched dazedly as the Northern Ocean clone came and went without a trace, feeling shocked within. He left just like that. He had nothing else to say or do. Right, the real Yin Zhaoge had never intended to obtain anything from this whale fishing city and the Xie family in the first place. Having taken care of the impostors who had impersonated him, he had naturally left. Xiao Yang and the Whale Breath Sect elder exchanged looks, that Whale Breath Sect elder sighing. "This final one is the real solar luminary young master. This old man was impolite just now. I only hope that the solar luminary young master will not blame me." Xiao Yang smiled bitterly. Right, an elite like the solar luminary young master would probably not care about the Xie family and whale fishing city at all. It's just that, sigh. It was just that they had lost a chance to get on Yin Zhaoge's good side. It was a pity that the Xie family had been fearful of not being able to properly entertain the impostors. Yet, they had just had to act foolishly before the real one. Regaining his wits, Xiao Yang was filled with regret as he wished that he could give himself 2 tight slaps. A Xie family descendant beside him suddenly jolted awake as he hurriedly said, "Family head, the environment in the image just now seemed a little like the layout of a restaurant in our whale fishing city." Xiao Yang's eyes instantly lit up. "Quick, lead the way." Those of the Xie family in the manor instantly sped into action once more. At this moment, the Northern Ocean clone had already returned to the restaurant's private room. Light flickered on his palm as 2 silhouettes landed on the ground. One of the silhouettes was that Mao Yang who was on the brink of death, while the other had the exact same appearance as Yin Zhaoge. He was currently staring in a daze at Mao Yang, who had a sigil of sunlight imprinted on his forehead. This person smiled bitterly, touching his forehead. He was a living person. Had he become a demon of Yin Zhaoge's lineage, who had secretly escaped and caused chaos just like that? Chapter 809. Even if the other 2 fakes had not arrived, the tall, thin youth who had arrived first might still have been exposed if he had remained for too long. After all, his appearance was still rather different from Yin Zhaoge's. Anyone who had seen Yin Zhaoge's true form or seen an image of him before would be able to tell that he was not Yin Zhaoge himself. It was the same for the black-clothed youth who had arrived later. Only this third person would be able to come and go as he pleased without any problems at all. It was not just Whale Fishing City and the Xie family. No matter how vast the world was, he could use Yin Zhaoge's name to wander about. So long as he did not meet someone familiar to Yin Zhaoge, most people would not be able to tell the difference. Yin Zhaoge himself cultivated in a wide range of martial arts. Even if his martial arts were different from Yin Zhaoge's, he would still be able to conceal it. This third person had originally been very confident in himself as he had decided not to go to the Royal Reed Sea, thinking that he would be able to go anywhere else. It was a long journey. By the time the locals had received the news and learnt that Yin Zhaoge had not left the Royal Reed Sea or had appeared somewhere else, he would have long since left, heading elsewhere. It was just that his luck was really bad, as he had actually just happened to meet the real deal the first time. He had impersonated Yen Zhaoge, looking at that Mao Yang. Even as he smiled bitterly to himself, a chill also arose slightly within his heart. Yen Zhaoge was trying to prevent such a situation from occurring. Yen Zhaoge did not know how many people like him there were, and did not know if there would be others like him in existence. His foreshadowing in Whale Fishing City today was equivalent to an endorsement. If something like this happened again in the future, it would be some demonic beast of his who had attained human form sneaking away again. Yen Zhaoge appraised the other party rather interestedly. To Yen Zhaoge, this act of transforming someone into a living person was actually more out of some vile interest in watching Journey to the West. He had encountered 2 Maoyang along the way earlier, killing one and capturing the other. The cartilage of this thing would be a supreme delicacy when cooked, allowing the gluttons like Yen Zhaoge, Feng Yunsheng, and the others to have their fill of food along the way. The one that was still alive had been brought along with him, being kept in the Myriad Dragon Palace to maintain its freshness. He had not thought that it would be put to use here. Speaking of which, as compared to evil creature revealing its true form, Yen Zhaoge would have preferred to try saying something like, "Fellow Taoist, please wait," looking at the other party. Yen Zhaoge smiled. Oh, it shouldn't be some kind of treasure. Instead, it seems like he consumed some kind of pill. That person nodded and said, "Yes, I did consume a type of form-dispelling pill. I was the one who offended you, so please forgive me. If you need me to compensate you in any way, I'll agree to anything within my means." Yen Zhaoge swiveled his head to look at the Northern Ocean clone, who retrieved a shadow shrinking pouch, spending some effort before finally opening it. "The restriction on this shadow shrinking pouch was placed by your family's elders, right?" Yen Zhaoge smiled as he rummaged through the shrinking shadow sack. After a moment, he took out a medicinal bottle from within, sniffing it before taking out a golden needle and stabbing it within. He used his own true essence to feel and analyze it. After a short while, Yen Zhaoge said, "Very intricate. The level of the person who concocted the pill was very high. If I am not mistaken, this medicinal pill has a time limit. Taking one can only last for a certain period of time. After that, you will need to take it again in order to maintain it." The man nodded. "Yes, not bad." Yen Zhaoge held a medicinal pill in his palm as he asked, "There is one thing that I am not very certain of. It seems that everyone who consumes this pill can only assume the appearance of a fixed person. Consuming the pill afterwards would only prolong the medicinal effect, not being able to transform into someone else." Hearing his words, the other party was shocked. He was able to see so much about the form-dispelling pill without consuming it. Seeing this person's expression, Yen Zhaoge knew that his guess was correct. He smiled as he kept the pill before asking, "What's with that jade necklace?" "Those 2 fellows aside, you are of rather extraordinary birth. Why are you also coveting the things of this small place? Any one of you 3 would be able to forcibly snatch it from me with the strength that the people of Whale Fishing City currently have. Why did you resort to such a method?" Yen Zhaoge laughed. "Oh, right. You don't count. You intended to impersonate me from the start, intending to continue doing so." This person before him was rather adaptable as he answered, "Honestly, that necklace seems to be related to some secret treasure. It was only a spur-of-the-moment idea of mine. Those 2 must have been specifically aiming for that thing. The Whale Breath sect has set up a special mechanism in the Xie family manor of Whale Fishing City. If they forcibly attack and destroy the manor, the Whale Breath sect will immediately know of it. At the end of the day, this is a sect with an immortal bridge, Martial Saint. No one wants to cause too much of a disturbance lest it be detrimental to their future plans. Even if the 3 of them were to fight it out like now, it would at least not infuriate the whale breath sect into immediately sending experts over to capture us. Despite saying this person still appeared rather relaxed. Yen Zhaoga pointed at the talisman on his forehead, asking, "How did you get this talisman?" The other party answered, "It was left behind by a senior." "I am not clear on the specifics." Yen Zhaoga stroked his lower chin. "So the exalted solar luminary once had dealings with experts of the prime clear lineage." His casual words were like a sudden clap of thunder in the other party's ears. Even having fallen into Yen Zhaoga's hands, the man who had still been able to maintain his calm despite feeling rather dejected and defeated was now staring wide-eyed and tongue-tied at Yen Zhaoga. Yen Zhaoga smiled. "What? While the sword art you executed is a variant of the immortal ending sword, it is definitely of the direct lineage, being a variation of the most orthodox immortal ending sword manual of the prime clear lineage. If not for your deep comprehension of the true immortal ending sword manual, how would you have been able to produce such an intricate sword art that is easy to disguise? Looking at your martial arts, there is no enmity between us in the past. You should not have pretended to be me in order to frame me. Instead, it should have been for convenience in moving about in the world beyond worlds, or perhaps in the southeastern Yang Heaven territory. You can also be considered a peerless genius with a tinge of pride. If not for the fact that you had no choice or other motives, why would you want to turn yourself into someone else?" In truth, the 3 fakes he had encountered in Whale Fishing City had all been extremely outstanding in terms of talent and strength. While they were all mid-merging avatar martial saints, their strength surpassed that of martial practitioners of the same cultivation level. There would always be someone stronger amongst the strong, and this third person was also the strongest amongst the 3 of them. How could someone of the direct lineage of the prime clear lineage be easy to deal with? The Northern Ocean clone had been able to toy with him like this because the difference in their cultivation bases was just too great, and the Northern Ocean clone was similarly extremely powerful. Yen Zhaoga asked mildly, "The earthly sovereign has decreed that descendants of the prime clear lineage are strictly forbidden from entering the world beyond worlds. Those who disobey will be slain immediately. Why have you braved such a great risk and come here?" The shocked expression on that person's face gradually vanished as he gazed at Yen Zhaoga. "I had not thought that the renowned solar luminary young master would actually be a descendant of my prime clear lineage. I have been disrespectful." The other party calmed down. "While you are stronger than me, your cultivation base is not much higher than mine. If you are not someone who also cultivates in the direct lineage immortal ending sword manual, how would you be able to see through my foundation?" The corners of Yen Zhaoga's mouth arched lightly upwards. "I am different from you, just like a certain person who is different from you, and you all—" That person was rather taken aback. "You are a descendant of Senior Apprentice Granduncle Long's lineage?" Chapter 810. Senior Apprentice Granduncle Long? Hearing his words, Yen Zhaoga smiled. "It looks like you are rather valued by your seniors in your lineage, knowing such a secret." Still, Yen Zhaoga instead shook his head. "I am different from you, different from that person as well." The other party glanced deeply at Yen Zhaoga. Having been able to roam the world beyond worlds alone, how could he be someone who spoke indiscriminately? While it had seemed like he had blurted out some information earlier, it had actually been yet another attempt to mislead and probe Yen Zhaoga. His senior apprentice granduncle's lineage had always been passed down by a single person in the world beyond worlds. Also, it was not a master-disciple lineage, but a bloodline legacy, with descendants remaining in the world beyond worlds. His seniors would have to leave as they would not remain in the world beyond worlds. While he did not know who the person currently in the world beyond worlds was, or what his identity was to outsiders, it was definitely not Yen Zhaoga. His understanding of Yen Zhaoga was very limited, Still, he knew that Yen Zhaoga's father had appeared in the royal Reed Sea as well, his identity clear. If Yen Zhaoga had directly admitted it earlier in an attempt to mislead him, he would instead know that Yen Zhaoga did not understand the situation. Yet, Yen Zhaoga's words now made it hard for him to judge. Looking at the other party, Yen Zhaoga smiled. "No need to try and get information out of me. You should just answer my questions honestly. I have never minded extorting confessions through torture. While you are older than me, you are still extremely young amongst martial practitioners of the same cultivation level. I believe that your talent and will are both very good, and you might even be very confident in your own willpower." Yen Zhaoga smilingly took out a golden needle, waving it in front of the other party. "Still, I wonder if you can withstand the cold marrow needles of the 7 great tortures. With your background, you should have heard of the cold marrow needles before. It is true that you are of the prime clear direct lineage and have a deep background. Still, since you pretended to be me and ended up in my hands, I will have no qualms about whatever I do to you. I will say this shamelessly. Even if I pull out your tendons and flay your skin, grind your bones and scatter your ashes, if your seniors want to avenge you and come to the world beyond worlds to look for me, they will first have to pass through the earthly sovereign." That youth smiled bitterly. "It was wrong of me to impersonate you and enter the world beyond worlds. Still, we can be considered to have some sort of relationship at the end of the day. There is no need to use a great torture like the cold marrow needles, right?" Yen Zhaoga waved his hands, interrupting him. "Whether or not there is a relationship between us will depend on whether or not you are tactful." This youth instantly choked, not having thought at all that Yen Zhaoga would be so shameless. Yen Zhaoga asked leisurely, "Right, after chatting for so long, I still don't know your name?" He almost had the urge to burst into tears. "After such a long time, you still know to ask for my name?" The youth answered solemnly, "Prime clear disciple, Sun Zhongda." Yen Zhaoga nodded. "Very good. I do not need you to say anything about the internal affairs of your lineage. Still, you have to tell me clearly why you have come to the world beyond worlds." Sun Zhongda sighed. Regarding the problem of his sect, he would rather challenge the punishment than reveal it. Still, Yen Zhaoga had not asked him about this, only asking him why he had come to the world beyond worlds. With that, there was no need for him to be stubborn. After all, he was meat on someone else's chopping block. If he stubbornly persisted, he would only suffer. While Sun Zhongda also cultivated in the Tao of the Sword, he was flexible and adaptable. As long as his bottom line was not crossed, he was always adaptable. He was silent for a moment before he said, "That jade necklace is related to a secret treasure. While I only came up with this idea on the spur of the moment after hearing the news, I have also come to the world beyond worlds this time for that secret treasure. Knowing that the jade necklace is related to that secret treasure, I have also made a trip to Whale Fishing City." Yen Zhaoga glanced at him from the corner of his eye. "What kind of secret treasure would cause you to be willing to take such a great risk?" Sun Zhongda said, "It is related to the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace. If the clues are right, it should be the pill hall of the Divine Palace where countless divine pills and spirit medicines were stored that year." While Yen Zhaoga's expression did not change, he was inwardly vigilant. "Are you trying to scare me?" First, not mentioning whether the pill hall of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace still exists after the Great Calamity. Even if it does, if it really does exist, the bigwigs of your prime clear lineage would not even complain about having too many people mobilizing. You have come to the world beyond worlds alone now. Pardon my bluntness, but you are not even qualified to lead the way." Sun Zhongda's expression was as per usual after hearing this. "The solar luminary young master speaks true. I have only come to try my luck. It is not that I will definitely be able to find the pill hall of the Divine Palace." He said candidly The clues are extremely limited. Also, they do not point to the pill hall itself, instead pointing to a pill furnace that was once within the hall. I want to try and find this pill furnace. Afterwards, there might be some hope of finding the pill hall. Still, can you actually find the pill furnace? Even if you do find it, can you find the pill hall? As you said just now, does the pill hall still exist? How many divine pills are still preserved within? These are all unknown. My lineage will naturally not invest too much effort into this. Sun Zhongda said. Researching the clues, I sensed that there might be a way out of the world beyond worlds. Therefore, after some preparations, I came here. Disguising myself as you is to make it easier to traverse the southeastern Yang Heaven territory. Yan Zhaoge asked him, Where is your destination in the southeastern Yang Heaven territory? Sun Zhongda answered, Jade Sun Mountain Range, Solitary Heart Peak. Feng, Yunsheng, Ahu, and Xiao Ai exchanged glances without batting an eyelid. Yan Zhaoge had found clues based on the encompassing abundance golden pill. The heavenly flame tree that he was looking for was precisely growing in the vicinity of the Jade Sun Mountain Range's Solitary Heart Peak. Yan Zhaoge asked, What does this jade necklace have to do with that place? Sun Zhongdao explained, It is rumored that this is not a treasure that the Xie family has always possessed. Instead, the family head Xie Liang purchased it from someone else. The original owner of this item had once been to the Jade Sun Mountain Range's Solitary Heart Peak, having even obtained 2 spirit pills that could be considered precious even in the world beyond worlds from there. As news had spread afterwards, others had headed there as well, trying to try their luck. Still, they had all returned empty-handed in the end, the original owner having already perished, not leaving anything behind. Some people had set their gazes on this jade necklace. There were only a few people in the vicinity of the Jade Sun Mountain Range who knew of this, as it had yet to spread to the setting sun archipelago. While Xie Liang had purchased the jade necklace, he was unaware of the underlying story behind it. Yan Zhaoge pondered for a moment before saying, Can you let me take a look at that most original clue that you obtained? Sun Zhongda smiled bitterly. It is not that I am unwilling. It is that I cannot. That is just a piece of information stored within a jade talisman. After looking at it, the jade talisman became empty. Yan Zhaoge stared at him for a while before suddenly smiling. I just like dishonest people like you. Saying thus, he pierced an acupoint on Sun Zhongda's body with a golden needle. The other party's expression instantly changed greatly, looking at the trembling Sun Zhongda. Yan Zhaoge said mildly, The thing still exists, just that it is not in your hands. You have other fellow disciples who have also come out in search of that treasure, just that they might not have entered the world beyond worlds, right? Chapter 8:11. Sun Zhongda's cultivation base was being suppressed by the Northern Ocean clone. Currently, the cold marrow needles had caused all his true essence to turn in, spreading throughout his limbs and bones, as they were pervasive and hard to resist. The sigil of sunlight on his forehead wanted to light up once more, but was suppressed by Yan Zhaoge's extreme yang seal, as it instantly ceased to move at all. Sun Zhongda currently felt like innumerable sharp needles were stabbing into every single part of his body at the same time. Every single one of his pores was being pierced by needles. It was not even sufficient to describe the density of the needles. Sun Zhongda could only feel that there was not a single spot on his entire body that was the size of a needle that did not bear that bone-piercing pain. The pain of these needles would not be reduced just because some parts of his body were exceptionally weak. On the contrary, the more weak the parts, the more intense the pain would be. For example, his eyes, his mouth, his perineum. Fortunately, this needle of Yan Zhaoge's did not persist for too long. Sun Zhongda shuddered, only recovering after a long time. Looking at him, Yan Zhaoge had a regretful expression on his face. Sigh, It looks like you are not willing to have some connection with this Yin. There really is no helping it. Such things cannot be forced. If he could defeat Yen Zhaoge, Sun Zhongda swore that he would definitely properly teach this shameless bastard who was still trying to act innocent after gaining an advantage. Yet, the Northern Ocean clone's palm pressed down, suppressing him to the point where he was unable to move at all. Sun Zhongda smiled bitterly. There are indeed fellow disciples who are searching for the same secret treasure as me. Still, we are not on the same side. They are searching for it in extra-dimensional space, while I am searching for it here in the world beyond worlds. The item is in their hands. I really cannot take it out. Looking at Yen Zhaoge, he said, I have a way to contact them. Still, I really cannot tell you about this. I would rather die beneath your cold marrow needles. With the unique communication technique of descendants of the prime clear lineage, it would be possible to mislead the other party by sending false information or even setting up a trap to kill him. This was especially so if Yen Zhaoge leaked it to some major figures of the world beyond worlds. The consequences would be something that Sun Zhongda would be unable to predict. He could provide a false method of contact, instead informing his fellow disciples of his predicament and causing them to be wary. Still, after what had just happened, Sun Zhongda felt that Yen Zhaoge would probably not fall for it. Since that was the case, he might as well die rather than submit. But then again, he wasn't afraid of death, but he wasn't confident that he could endure the torture of the cold marrow needles. It was hard to say how long they could last. The longer it lasted, the more intense the pain caused by the cold marrow needles. Yen Zhaoge said mildly, I said before that I don't care about the matters of your clan. However, on the other hand, you have to tell me clearly what I care about. He suddenly chuckled. Searching in the outer realm, that's not something anyone can do. It seems like it's someone who cultivates the immortal trapping sword manual. Zhu Xian was sharp, Slaughter Immortal was dead, and Trap Immortal was surrounded by red light. The Absolute Immortal's transformations were boundless. The blood of the great Luo Immortals stained their clothes. This ballad simply described the characteristics of the 4 exterminating immortal swords. Compared to the celestial slashing sword that could slay the transformation of the illusory and the formless world, the celestial trapping sword was the sword of finality that could slay time and space. If the celestial slashing sword could destroy all things, then the celestial trapping sword could sever time and space. When cultivated to the peak, a single sword could slay space, severing the long river of time and shattering countless worlds of space. Therefore, while Yen Zhaoge had easily defeated Kong Maosheng and Kong Jinyuan's time-flowing sword in the underwater palace back then, he had also felt that it would have been even easier if he didn't cultivate in the immortal trapping sword. From a certain perspective, the concept of the immortal trapping sword just happened to counter the spatial heavenly scripture and the Aeon Light heavenly scripture as they mutually reinforced and countered each other. When cultivated to a certain level, like the spatial heavenly scripture, the immortal trapping sword would allow a martial practitioner to move relatively freely amidst infinite space. Possessing both the immortal trapping sword and the immortal ending sword, Sun Zhongda's lineage really seemed to be the most orthodox of the prime clear, direct lineage. Sun Zhongda's expression was exceptionally marvelous now. He stared fixedly at Yen Zhaoge for a long time before a smile that was even uglier than crying appeared on his face. The descendants of the prime clear lineage had not appeared in the world beyond worlds and the many lower worlds for a long time. Most people had already long since known them as legends that had been buried in the dust of history. In the current world beyond worlds, besides the peak bigwigs, how many people possessed sufficient understanding towards the legacies of the prime clear lineage? While Yen Zhaoge might be related to the exalted solar luminary, being so clear about the special characteristics of the immortal exterminating 4 swords, would you dare to say that you were not related to the legacies of the prime clear lineage at all? Sun Zhongda currently had a very bad premonition, with Yan Zhaoge not concealing anything in front of him. Didn't that mean that he had already made up his mind to get rid of him? Relax. While I am a little unhappy that you impersonated me, seeing that you are much more professional than those two fakes, I still rather admire you. As long as you cooperate obediently, I will not take your life. Looking at Sun Zhongda's expression, Yan Zhaoge could roughly tell what he was thinking. Yan Zhaoge smiled. Tell me how the secret treasure you are looking for is related to the Jade Sun Mountain Range's solitary heart peak. While I won't let you go, as long as you don't try anything funny, I won't kill you. After this matter is concluded, you might still have a chance to regain your freedom. As for if you try anything funny, I naturally have various methods to deal with you. The cold marrow needles are just the first stage. There are still many new tricks after that. Yan Zhaoge was all smiles as he looked at Sun Zhongda. I wonder if you would be willing to give me a hand in testing out all of them? Sun Zhongda lost his temper. I have no other choice but to believe you. Don't ask me about matters related to my lineage. I will tell you everything else. I have yet to go to the Jade Sun Mountain Range. Still, according to the clues I obtained, there should be some secret cave manor there, with a spatial passageway leading to a space outside the domain. The supreme pill treasure of the pill hall of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace, the profound sky purple gold furnace, or something related to it, might be there. Apart from that, there might also be some scattered divine pills and spirit medicines. The pill that the owner of the jade necklace found in the Jade Sun Mountain Range earlier should have been concocted by the profound sky purple gold furnace in pre-Great Calamity times, Sun Zhongda said. For a pill of pre-Great Calamity to have been preserved till now with its medicinal efficacy still intact, it is definitely not ordinary. Yan Zhaoge nodded slowly as he listened, pondering for a moment before smiling. Since that is so, I will have to trouble you to travel with this yen for a period of time. The Northern Ocean clone exerted force with his palm, Sun Zhongda's figure vanishing. That Maoyang was imprisoned within the Myriad Dragon Palace as well. Xiao AI now asked from the side, Young Master, you have already returned that jade necklace to the Xie family. Does that thing have anything to do with the secret treasure? Yan Zhaoge smiled. I have returned it, but we also have what we should have. The Northern Ocean clone similarly smiled as light shot out from one of his pupils, illuminating the air and manifesting as many diagrams. To be continued. Chapter 8:12. The numerous diagrams that appeared within the pupils of the Northern Ocean clone merged amidst space, finally forming a three-dimensional image. The scene displayed within the image guided Yan Zhaoge's path. Amidst lofty mountains and perilous peaks, within a secluded mountain stream that virtually never saw the light of day, there was a lone cave that was concealed by strange rocks and moss. Xiao AI realized, after snatching the jade necklace from that Sun Zhongda and handing it over to the head of the Xie family, young master's clone already successfully analyzed the secret of the necklace. Yan Zhaoge smiled. Precisely so. While it is rather complicated, it is still not difficult for me. The original owner met with a tribulation after leaving the Jade Sun Mountain Range and died very quickly. The necklace was a hint he left for his descendants. Sadly, his descendants were unable to discover the secret within, even selling it to the Xie family of the Setting Sun Archipelago. He pointed at the image. This cave should be where the original owner of the jade necklace discovered the miraculous medicine. Feng, Yunsheng asked, Are we leaving immediately? Yan Zhaoge nodded. We will search for Mother's whereabouts in Whale Fishing City. If we do not find anything, we will leave this place and head to the Jade Dragon Mountain Range's Solitary Heart Peak. From the news he had heard earlier, Solitary Heart Peak was a place where heavenly flame trees rarely grew in the southeastern Yang Heaven territory. Analyzing the clues left behind in Chi-Wei's notebook, he had obtained the encompassing abundance golden pill in relation to this place. If he had still not been able to confirm this earlier, now that he had seen Sun Zhongda's reaction and the information left behind by the jade necklace, Yan Zhaoge believed that the Jade Sun Mountain Range's solitary heart peak was precisely where his target was. Yan Zhaoge had planned to head to the region of the Jade Sun Mountain Range's solitary heart peak next after Whale Fishing City. Now that he had this diagram, he would be able to save a great deal of time as he headed directly to that cave. It's actually the profound sky purple gold furnace, Yan Zhaoge pondered as some distant memories surfaced within his mind. While he had not personally come into contact with the profound sky purple gold furnace before, Yan Zhaoge also knew that it was a supreme treasure of the Tao of alchemy. In pre-Great Calamity times, it had been a top-ranked divine artifact for concocting pills. The internal crystal furnace that Yan Zhaoge was currently using for artifact forging was actually a variant of this supreme treasure, changing pill concoction into artifact forging. At the cost of reducing the efficiency of the internal crystal furnace to a certain extent, it was exchanged for the ease of operation and popularization of its manufacture. From Yan Zhaoge's point of view, this could be considered as a good deed benefiting the masses. Of course, the profound sky purple gold furnace was still the profound sky purple gold furnace. It was unique and difficult to replicate. As an important treasure of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace, the cauldron had always been kept in the pill hall. It would only be opened once in a while. The medicinal pills refined by him had miraculous effects, causing one to gasp in amazement. Compared to a powerful immortal pill like the encompassing abundance golden pill, there was a limit to how many of them could be refined. But when it was used to refine other inferior pills, the output was extremely shocking. The Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's pill hall had a huge amount of elixirs. It wasn't as simple as it seemed. Moreover, this so-called inferior pill was only relative to the encompassing abundance golden pill. In the current post-Great Calamity era, these pills were all supreme treasures. In the world beyond worlds, just a single one of them would cause people to fight over it. While it was often said that cultivating in a diagram and relying on pills would cause one's foundation to be unstable, the path of ascension becoming increasingly narrow, this was only relatively speaking. While an oceanic amount of elixirs could not guarantee that a mediocre person would definitely become a peerless expert, it could guarantee that those who were already geniuses would be able to ascend to the peak faster. Whether or not their foundation would be unstable depended more on personal factors. As he pondered, Ahu, who had left earlier, re-entered, smiling. "Young master, the Xie family's head Xie Liang and the others have come to pay a visit to you." Yan Zhaoge shrugged. "There's nothing to see. I obtained the clues within the jade necklace from him, but also returned the jade necklace to his hands. Whether or not he can discover the secret within will depend on his own abilities. To him, if he can't discover it, it would just be that today's matter never happened, and those fakes never came knocking. It would be the same as before, with nothing to gain and nothing to lose." Yan Zhaoge said, "The matter of finding the clues to my mother should be done in private. There is no need to rely on the help of the locals, causing a huge uproar in the end." Ahu answered, "I know what to do." He paused for a moment before slapping his head. "Right, that kid whose wife was abducted earlier has also come." Hearing his words, Yan Zhaoge remained seated as he swiveled his head and gazed towards the entrance of the wine house. His gaze directly penetrated through the obstruction of objects. Seeing that other than Xie Liang and the others, that young martial scholar whose wife had been abducted earlier was currently dragging his wife along as they arrived at the entrance of the wine house together. The youth who had refused to submit to the fake Yan Zhaoge, who was also a martial saint earlier, was now kneeling on one knee, bowing deeply towards the wine house. He did not even know where exactly Yen Zhaoge was within the wine house. However, after bowing together, the husband and wife did not remain behind, not even attempting to meet Yen Zhaoge again, as they just directly turned and left. Seeing this, a look of praise instead appeared within Yen Zhaoge's gaze. Watching the other party gradually leave, Yen Zhaoge nodded slowly. He indeed has some backbone. That black-clothed fake who had abducted his wife should be a solitary practitioner of the Jade Sun Mountain range. While the possibility of him having relatives or friends was rather low, those who had killed him might still face retaliation. While his death had been due to Yen Zhaoge, it had been that young martial scholar whose wife had been abducted who had personally killed him. While the other party could not afford to offend Yen Zhaoge, he might have killed this youth to vent his anger. Under such circumstances, this person had still dared to viciously kill him, only thanking Yen Zhaoge afterwards, as he had no intention of seeking protection and relying on Yen Zhaoge's group. His talent is actually not weak, being above average. It is just that he started cultivating a little late. Still, it is not impossible for him to become a late bloomer. Yen Zhaoge said to Hu, while his personality is a little rash, his will is not bad. Just give him a chance, letting him stay or leave as he wishes. Hu understood. I will point out a clear path for him, also preparing some traveling expenses. Whether he is willing to head far away to the Royal Reed Sea and attempt to enter our sect or not will be entirely up to him. Yen Zhaoge nodded, and Hu immediately retreated, going outside the wine house to deal with Xiaoliang and the others. The Northern Ocean clone left the wine house, continuing his search for Xue Chuqing's whereabouts. Sadly, it seemed like Whale Fishing City really did not have much to show for it. Yen Zhaoge's group thus took their leave, leaving the city and heading to the Jade Sun Mountain range. The head of the Xie family, Xiaoliang, was unable to meet Yen Zhaoge at the end of the day. While Hu spoke politely, he was actually feeling uneasy, as he did not know if Yen Zhaoge really did not care about what had happened earlier. Logically speaking, Yen Zhaoge was not often active in the Setting Sun Archipelago. It was not a big deal for him to miss it. Still, Xiaoliang just felt that he and his family seemed to have missed out on something important. To be continued. Chapter 8:13. Leaving Whale Fishing City and the Setting Sun Archipelago, Yen Zhaoge's group headed straight for the Jade Sun Mountain Range's solitary Heart Peak. Pan Pan carried the Myriad Dragon Palace, speeding through the air. Yen Zhaoge and the others were seated within the Myriad Dragon Palace. Who was diligently cultivating. Feng Yunsheng was meditating, and Xiao AI was entranced by a formation diagram that Yen Zhaoge had imparted to her. The Northern Ocean clone was similarly seated in the meditative position within the palace, a great spear placed horizontally across his knees. Light flickered on the tip of the spear, resembling flowing fire as a powerful aura surged from within, tyrannical and authoritative. It was none other than the high-grade sacred artifact, the King Xian Spear. With the Northern Ocean clone's current cultivation base, it would not be easy for him to refine this weapon, as he did not cultivate in the direct lineage of the Grand Xian dynasty's 5-fire true art and 7-foul treasured spear. Still, after more than half a year of careful refinement, this weapon had already fallen into the Northern Ocean clone's hands now. Yen Zhaoge did not interfere, instead allowing the Northern Ocean clone to face it alone. In this process of refinement, this high-grade sacred artifact resembled a whetstone, as it was tempering the Northern Ocean clone as well. As the Northern Ocean clone inhaled and exhaled, the many acupoints of his body shook together, resonating with the myriad stars of the universe. More and more acupoints were unceasingly surpassing the bottleneck of refining their acupoints to see divinity, possessing even more inconceivable power as the Northern Ocean clone grew stronger and stronger. accompanied by the refinement of the King Xian spear, the Northern Ocean clone currently stood at the peak of the 4th level of the martial saint realm, the early seeing divinity stage. He was only a paper-thin distance away from surpassing the final bottleneck and breaking through to the 5th level of the martial saint realm, the mid-seeing divinity stage. The characteristic of the 5th level of the martial saint realm, the mid-seeing divinity stage, was to light up the starfire within one's body. When one refined their acupoints to see divinity, the inner universe would appear and truly begin communicating with the outer universe, indicating that the martial practitioner's inner universe would begin to unceasingly form and be perfected. During this process, one would have to continue raising the strength of their fleshly body's qi and blood in order to support more of their acupoints to resonate with the actual stars and see divinity. While refining their acupoints to see divinity could strengthen the fleshly body in itself, the progress was still insufficient to unceasingly surpass the limits of the human body. From the acupoints that had already been refined into divinity, the method was to give birth to a purifying fire and use it to cleanse the body. It was like the starlight in the internal universe had turned into starfire that flickered in the sky. By lighting up the starfire in one's body, one would be able to further expand one's limits and support more acupoints to become divinity, continuing to climb the path of martial arts. In order to light up starfire, just one acupoint alone was not enough. It required a certain number of acupoints that had become stars in the body. Once the basic conditions were met, he could continue to try and figure it out to break through the final barrier. The Northern Ocean clone was currently already at this bottleneck, only having to light up starfire before he would be reborn once more, stepping into the 5th level of the martial saint realm. At this time, Yan Zhaoge had already finished adjusting his condition. His attention fell on the internal crystal furnace in front of him. At this moment, this internal crystal furnace of his was constantly being perfected and upgraded, having basically already regained its glory from before the Great Calamity. With Yan Zhaoge's cultivation base as a martial saint, so long as he had sufficient materials, he could even mass-produce low-grade sacred artifacts. Still, materials that could be used to forge sacred artifacts were always scarce. This was the case in the world beyond worlds as well. Yan Zhaoge guessed that perhaps the central June Heaven territory and Kunlun Mountain would be more abundant. At this moment, he was staring at the internal crystal furnace, staring at a dark green bamboo cane that flickered with purple light. As compared to before, this dark green bamboo cane had grown longer again, already nearing 6 feet in length from its original 5 feet in length. The bamboo cane that had originally had 5 segments had now grown a 6th segment as well, and was about to be completed. Yan Zhaoge weighed a sword in his hand, its sword light resembling a long rainbow as it illuminated the heavens and the earth. It was precisely the low-grade sacred artifact, the glorious rainbow sword, which he had obtained from killing Liao Zheng of Shen Lingzi's lineage back when he had obtained the earth-ocean lung crystals and the heaven-bearing ceremonial fragrance. As a sword sacred artifact, this was one of the weapons that Yan Zhaoge was more used to traversing the Royal Reed Sea for a period of time afterwards. Still, it was already no longer of use now. First, not speaking of the high-grade sacred artifact, the evil sword Tao Tai, just the weapon that he had just obtained from Sun Zhongda, was a mid-grade sacred artifact that surpassed the glorious rainbow sword. Yan Zhaoge gazed at the internal crystal furnace before tossing the glorious rainbow sword within. While it can be unceasingly refined and strengthened along with the growth of my cultivation base, it still requires nourishment. Yan Zhaoge smacked his lips. Using artifacts and spirit artifacts as firewood to burn, Yan Zhaoge himself actually didn't feel any psychological burden when burning sacred artifacts. Still, sacred artifacts were hard to come by at the end of the day. While Yan Zhaoge was gradually unable to use low-grade sacred artifacts, there were many people by his side and in his lineage who could use them. In the Eight Extremities world back then, a single low-grade sacred artifact had been sufficient to influence the overall situation of the world to a certain extent. Even now, the number of low-grade sacred artifacts in the Eight Extremities world was actually still very limited. Broad Creed Mountain, having established its lineage and established its foundation in the world beyond worlds, it similarly required sufficient resources. Therefore, while Yen Zhaoge had accumulated some treasures through the loot of his enemies earlier, he had not directly burned them into the internal crystal furnace to forge this bamboo cane of his. Still, there was basically no need for him to consider this now. Speaking of which, he still had to thank King Xuanmu. After the battle of the Spirit Inheritance region, and the great battle in which the Grand Xian dynasty martial practitioners had descended into the Eight Extremities world, the spoils of war that Yen Zhaoge and Broad Creed Mountain had obtained were not just the King Xian spear, the Cloud Commanding spear, and the precipitous golden armor. There had also been an even more massive number of low-grade sacred artifacts, while Yen Zhaoge, Yen Di, and Yuan Zhengfeng had all been rather domineering in their attacks, and some had inevitably been destroyed in the process of battle. There was still a considerable amount left. On this basis, the more superior ones were kept, while the remaining ones were given to Yen Zhaoge to burn as firewood. For Broad Creed Mountain to establish itself in the world beyond worlds, it currently had to rely more on high-end combat prowess like Yen Zhaoge, Yen Di, Feng Yinsheng, and Yuan Zhengfeng. As for the middle echelons, a long time would still be needed. Now that the internal crystal furnace had been completed, while sacred artifacts were hard to forge, there was still time for their resources to grow alongside their manpower. Of course, if news of this spread, the other powers would definitely collapse upon hearing it. Of the low-grade sacred artifacts that Yen Zhaoge had on him now, the imperious cold martial armor and the fish dragon spear had all already been burned into the internal crystal furnace. He still had use for the former, while the latter was the first sacred artifact that he had forged and could be kept as a memento. Other than the green abyss sword that his grand master Yuan Zhengfeng had personally forged for him, Yen Zhaoge had long since refined all his other spirit artifacts. Currently, the dark green bamboo cane that shone brightly within the internal crystal furnace was Yen Zhaoge's greatest money-eater. Still, Yen Zhaoge did not feel the slightest heartache as he was all smiles as he looked at that dark green bamboo cane. Money-eater aside, this was a treasure that Yen Zhaoge had personally forged from scratch, growing along with him step by step to this day. Its true potential had only just been revealed. To be continued. Chapter 8:14. Tossing the dark green bamboo cane into the internal crystal furnace for refinement, having made all the necessary arrangements. Yen Zhaoge no longer had to keep an eye on it. As time passed, the furnace would naturally be opened when the time came. After a long period of trekking, Yen Zhaoge's group finally arrived at the Jade Sun Mountain Range's solitary heart peak. Looking from afar, the southern hillside was covered with a fiery red forest. The branches and leaves rose and fell as the wind blew, as if there was a raging fire burning in the mountains. Heavenly flame trees, and such a dense heavenly flame forest at that. Yen Zhaoge nodded slightly. With the guidance of the map recorded on the jade bead necklace, he could save himself the time to explore the Lone Heart Peak, and he went straight to the mountain stream below. A huge rift formed between the mountain peaks. A large number of heavenly flame trees hung above the rift, their leaves blotting out the sky. Yen Zhaoge entered the rift valley, heading downwards. Looking up, the rift above was narrow to begin with. Now that it was blocked by the branches and leaves, the canyon was instantly plunged into darkness. Only sporadic sunlight shone through the gaps between the branches and leaves. When they reached the depths of the canyon, It was almost impossible to see the light of day all year round. The heavenly flame tree was red all year round, and it almost never shed its leaves. Without sunlight, the environment in the canyon was unusually cold and damp. After observing for a moment, Yen Zhaoge came to a realization: no wonder there aren't any sects or powerful martial practitioners established here. When many heavenly flame trees gathered together, they would breathe in the vigorous life energy of the wood element and the fiery essence of fire. They were extremely hot and yang. On the other hand, the valley below was filled with dense yin qi and cold qi. Seeing the environment here for the first time, Yen Zhaoge had still thought that being able to form a rarely seen land of the extremes of ice and fire, it would be a rare land of spiritual qi. But after careful observation, he discovered that the yang qi and yin qi had formed a strange balance. Not only did they not help each other, but they also canceled each other out. As a result, the geography of the Lonely Heart Peak was extremely mediocre. Very few people would be interested in it. The Northern Ocean clone remained in the Myriad Dragon Palace to cultivate, assailing the bottleneck of the 5th level of the Martial Saint realm. Exiting the hall, Yen Zhaoge sat on Pan Pan's back, allowing him to descend to the bottom of the mountain stream. After searching for a while in the mountain stream, he found the karst cave that the image on the jade necklace indicated. As Yen Zhaoge's group entered, they discovered that this karst cave was extremely deep and secluded, also extending in all directions. In the karst cave, it was hard to tell which direction to go. However, Yen Zhaoge already had a plan in mind as he cautiously took out a small brocade box. He opened the brocade box, and immediately a golden light shone in the dark cave. With the help of the golden light, he could see a faint purple aura rising from the brocade box. Yen Zhaoge gazed at the encompassing abundance golden pill within the box. If my guess is correct, just as he was thinking about this, he saw the spirit pill in the brocade box tremble slightly. Then it flew up into the air. Yen Zhaoge did not stop this encompassing abundance golden pill from flying out of the brocade box. Instead, his spirits rose as he followed after it. The grade of the encompassing abundance golden pill was too high. The spiritual qi and spirituality in this golden pill was far from being as simple as it looked. However, due to the long passage of time, in order to preserve its spirituality, this golden core had sealed off the leakage of its own spiritual energy. In other words, the spiritual core was like a life form that was currently in a deep slumber. It was like an animal hibernating, concealing its own vitality and spirituality to avoid the corrosion of the outside world. Therefore, on the way here, Yen Zhaoge had a thought. If this place really led to the secret treasure that Sun Zhongda spoke of, if that secret treasure really was a supreme treasure like the profound sky purple gold furnace, if this encompassing abundance golden pill had indeed been concocted by the profound sky purple gold furnace, if a greater part of the spirituality of this pill could still be preserved, then here, this encompassing abundance golden pill might be able to point out a path for him. There were too many prerequisites and assumptions here. If any of them failed, the plan would fail. Therefore, Yen Zhaoge was very relaxed, as he did not hold any especially high hopes. At most, he would think of other methods to slowly search for it after failing. Still, it looked like his luck was not bad. From the current state of the encompassing abundance golden pill, his earlier plan had actually succeeded. The reaction of this encompassing abundance golden pill is equivalent to proving Sun Zhongda's guess. Yen Zhaoge's eyes lit up. Sun Zhongda guessed that the secret treasure that he was looking for was likely the supreme pill Dao treasure of the pill hall of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace, the profound sky purple gold furnace. Still, this was just a guess at the end of the day. Before there was any concrete evidence, it was still just a guess at the end of the day. Through his experiments with the encompassing abundance golden pill, Yan Zhaoge had confirmed that this guess was likely correct. Firstly, a path leading to the secret treasure was indeed concealed within this cave. Secondly, the pill furnace or medicinal cauldron used to concoct this encompassing abundance golden pill existed within the secret treasure. Then, there was an 80% chance that this pill furnace was the profound sky purple gold furnace, being able to have such a miraculous effect. Engraving such a deep mark on the pill, being able to cause the encompassing abundance golden pill to react even after such a long period of wear and tear, possibly being extremely far away, this was not something that ordinary pill concoction furnaces could achieve. Finally, even if it was not the profound sky purple gold furnace, it should still be some other furnace that was not inferior to it in terms of quality. This secret treasure indeed existed. There was evidence to back it up, as it was priceless. Yan Zhaoge naturally had to try his luck with such a fortuitous encounter. If the pill hall still existed, if he could find its whereabouts on this trip, its value would be immeasurable. Of course, this trip might also be dangerous, as there would be many competitors for him. Yan Zhaoge followed behind the encompassing abundance golden pill, looking at it as it flew through the air. As they advanced, it could be clearly noticed that the speed at which the encompassing abundance golden pill was gradually increasing. After traversing the cave that extended in all directions for a while, the encompassing abundance golden pill finally came to a halt, hovering amidst a stalactite as it shook slightly in midair. Yan Zhaoge halted, silently sensing it. Even with his sensory abilities, it was only after a long time that he discovered something. Yan Zhaoge did not stand on ceremony as the cloud-commanding spear appeared within his hands before he stabbed out at a stalactite. That stalactite did not shatter as a small black dot appeared where the spear had touched it. The black dot gradually expanded, turning into a jet-black crevice of space. Yan Zhaoge nodded slightly. A tiny crevice had once been ripped open in space here, forming a dimensional passageway. Afterwards, the crevice had healed. Still, like a wound that had formed a scar, traces could still be seen. Yan Zhaoge's earlier spear strike had reopened that wound. After keeping the encompassing abundance golden pill and the cloud-commanding spear, Yan Zhaoge leapt into the myriad dragon palace. The myriad dragon palace transformed into a streak of light, shooting swiftly into that crevice of space. Passing through numerous layers of space, Yan Zhaoge landed within a foreign dimension. Just feeling the spiritual chi flow within this foreign dimension slightly, Yan Zhaoge knew that this place was extremely massive. Unlike the foreign dimensions that he had been to before, the dimensions here were exceptionally stable. Even if numerous martial saint experts battled here, the foreign dimension might still not shatter. Rather than saying that this was a foreign dimension, it would be better to say that it was a world of its own. Being able to form such a dimension meant that there was definitely an extraordinary existence here. It was either a person or a treasure. To be continued. Chapter 8:15. Gazing about, Yan Zhaoge saw that the sky here was suffused with a faint purple chi that resembled a clump of clouds. Golden light vaguely emanated from within the purple clouds, resembling sunlight that had been obstructed. However, the heavens and the earth were vast and empty. While there were mountains and rivers, no other living beings could be seen. Yan Zhaoge's nose twitched slightly as he could smell a faint medicinal fragrance. He strode forward once more, heading forward. The world before him was boundless. As he released the encompassing abundance golden pill once more, it instead showed no signs of activity as it quieted down. It was as if it could return to its roots as long as it returned to this foreign dimension, incomparably satisfied. Yan Zhaoge kept the encompassing abundance golden pill before beginning to advance based on his sensory abilities. Now, it was mainly through his sense of taste and smell that Yen Zhaoge was able to distinguish whether the medicinal fragrance was dense or faint before heading in the direction where it was denser. Indeed, after flying for a while, Yen Zhaoge's heart jolted slightly as he landed on the top of a mountain peak. After searching carefully for a moment, Yen Zhaoge discovered a bit of faint blue light on a protruding rock midway up the mountain. As he approached it, he saw that the blue light seemed to be embedded within the rocky cliff. The source of the light was clearly a black pill the size of an adult's thumb, its surface flickering with a blue luster unceasingly. Gazing carefully, there seemed to be tides rising and falling within the black pill. As he got closer, the sound of waves even resounded by Yen Zhaoge's ears. Profound essence black water pill. After recalling for a moment, Yen Zhaoge identified what this pill was. For martial practitioners who cultivated in water attribute martial arts or martial arts related to the refined qi of water, this was a supreme treasure that no amount of gold could buy. In this world, it was rare for a single pill to cause one's cultivation base to immediately advance by leaps and bounds. Still, there were always exceptions to everything. This profound essence black water pill was one of them. It could be of great benefit to martial practitioners who cultivated in water attribute martial arts or those who cultivated with the help of the refined qi of water. For those below the martial saint realm, the effects would virtually be instantaneous. For those of the martial saint realm, the effects would not be as quick. Still, it would still be greatly beneficial to their cultivation, allowing them to improve greatly in the process of cultivation. Looking at this pill, what Yen Zhaoge cared about the most was not the pill itself. Instead, it was this profound essence black water pill, which had similarly been produced by the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace that year. Yen Zhaoge inserted a golden needle within, infusing his true essence within and carefully sensing and inspecting it. A moment later, a quizzical look appeared on Yen Zhaoge's face. If I am not wrong, unlike that encompassing abundance golden pill, this pill seems to have been concocted not too long ago. He surveyed his surroundings. Although this space is unique, being able to seal the spiritual qi of pills from leaking out and helping to preserve their spirituality. If they were really concocted before the great calamity, they still shouldn't have been preserved to such an extent. It feels like it'll only take a dozen or so years for it to succeed. Yen Zhaoge's pupils abruptly dilated. Someone has long since beaten us to this place, even using the profound sky-purple gold furnace to concoct pills here. He frowned and suppressed the doubts in his heart, then carefully took out the profound black water pill before continuing forward. Along the way, Yen Zhaoge discovered a few pills scattered about. The clear light longevity pill, the purple qi golden jade pill, the myriad wonder flying star pill, the sacred heaven pill, the vast cold pill. All of these were immortal pills produced by the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace. Amongst them, some felt ancient, possibly having been left behind from before the great calamity. There were also some that felt very new, seeming like they had only been concocted recently. Along the way, Yen Zhaoge rapidly collected the pills that he encountered. Still, he no longer specifically searched for them, as he instead hastened his pace. From a certain perspective, Yen Zhaoge had already profited greatly from his gains thus far. If outsiders were to learn of this, they would probably collectively go crazy. Even powers like the Grand Xian Dynasty, the North Sea Sword Pavilion, and the Whale Breath sect would be envious. Still, Yen Zhaoge was naturally not satisfied with his current gains. After who knew how long, the world before Yen Zhaoge's eyes finally showed somewhat different scenes. Above the great earth stood a tall tower that flickered with radiance, resembling an altar. That tower had a total of 7 levels. Golden light wreathed it as streams of purple qi rose straight into the heavens from the top of the tower, resembling a pillar of smoke. Having arrived in the sky, the dense purple chi came into contact with the auspicious purple clouds in the sky before a distorted scene like a vortex was formed. However, the strangest thing was that the swirling pillar of smoke looked like a still image. After pondering for a moment, Yen Zhaoge strode up that tall tower. The tall tower indeed had its own restrictions. Still, it did not possess any hostile or offensive power. Swept along by that pillar of smoke that resembled a pillar that supported the heavens, Yen Zhaoge's figure immediately shot upwards, shooting into the clump of purple clouds above his head. Entering the clump of purple clouds, everything was blurry before his eyes as he was unable to distinguish between up and down, left and right. Still, a door of golden light soon appeared. Yen Zhaoge did not hesitate as he strode into the door of golden light. After the light had dissipated, the world before him abruptly opened up. The surrounding scenery was the same as before. Still, carefully sensing it, Yen Zhaoge discovered that this was shockingly already a different heaven and earth. The spiritual chi flow here was similar to that of that foreign dimension earlier. Still, there were minute yet distinct differences, as one could easily tell that these were two different foreign dimensions. No, it should be said that this foreign dimension is even vaster and more profound than I thought earlier. Stroking his lower chin, Yen Zhaoge turned and gazed over. Indeed, he saw an identical tall tower of 7 levels before him. Still, there was no dense purple chi rising into the heavens from the top of this tower. Feng Yunxing said, "From the looks of it, this place is actually split into different levels. We went from the lower level to the upper level." Yen Zhaoge nodded, glancing at that 7-story pagoda at the same time. Did this pagoda symbolize that this unique foreign space was also divided into 7 levels? Then, how should I go to the next level? Are there other pagodas elsewhere? Yen Zhaoge shrugged. If the mechanism of this tall tower before him was activated, it should send him back to the previous level. It was just that he did not know if that level was the lowest level. Yen Zhaoge's group moved once more. In this level of heaven and earth, there were still scattered medicinal pills. With finding the pagoda as their main goal, Yen Zhaoge and the others did not intentionally search for the scattered pills. Still, they casually picked up the pills that were right before their eyes as they passed by. After paying attention for a while, they discovered that while there were not many pills scattered here and there seemed to be slightly more of them than in the level below. From the looks of it, the higher up we go, the more good things there are. If that's the case, a precious treasure like the profound sky purple gold furnace is likely at the highest level and not the lowest level. After spending some time, they successfully ascended to the next level. Here, Yen Zhaoge's group continued trying to find a path to continue upwards. This time, however, a special situation drew their attention. There were indeed more divine pills and miraculous medicines scattered in this level of heaven and earth than in the previous 2 levels. Still, there were some places where the traces of pills from earlier were still present, yet the pills had disappeared. Whose expression was a rare, solemn one. "Young master, they have clearly been picked up by someone else." Yen Zhaoge's eyes narrowed into slits. It was not someone who concocted pills more than 10 years ago. Instead, someone else came here just a little earlier than us. Chapter 8:16. There were more pills scattered on this new level than on the previous 2 levels. Still, a considerable portion of them had been picked up. As for the rest, there were both new pills and old pills. This meant that the ones who had picked up the pills were not the ones who had concocted the new pills. Someone arrived here earlier than us, but it shouldn't have been too long. Yen Zhaoge rubbed his temples lightly. Otherwise, the profound sky purple gold furnace would probably already be gone. The encompassing abundance golden pill would not have reacted at the Jade Sun Mountain Range's solitary heart peak in the world beyond worlds. Feng Yunsheng said. Still, there are no signs of the pills being picked up from the 2 levels below. If they came here earlier than us, why did they only pick up this level and let go of the 2 levels below? Is it because the divine pills here are better? Hearing her question, Yen Zhaoge shook his head. No, the divine pills scattered on different levels do not differ much in quality. It is just that the higher up you go, the more there are. Yen Zhaoge surveyed their surroundings. There is one possibility. Those who entered here, us included, did not necessarily end up on the first level or at the bottommost level. Up until now, Yen Zhaoge's group was actually uncertain whether the level they had first arrived in was the bottommost level of this foreign dimension. The so-called first level was relative to themselves. By the same logic, Yen Zhaoge was actually uncertain how long it would take for them to reach the top level. Meanwhile, on this current level, those who had picked up a portion of the divine pills might only be the first level to them. If that existence that resembled a pagoda, whilst also an altar, just happened to lead to a higher level, most people would regard their current location as the bottommost level. If their final goal was the top of the pagoda, this would actually not be wrong. It was just that Yen Zhaoge's group was comparatively more tragic. Compared to that unknown group of competitors, they had climbed at least 2 more levels. Also, the other party might have already advanced to a higher level even faster than them. Time suddenly became pressing. Even Xiao AI's expression turned solemn. Because of a certain problem, everyone had no choice but to pay attention to it. They were unable to ascertain whether the level they had started from was the bottommost level or the intermediate level. If they had started from the intermediate level, they had already ascended 3 levels now. If this foreign space really had 7 floors, then it was not impossible that the floor above their heads was the top of the tower. Yen Zhaoge smacked his lips. Thinking too much about it is pointless. Let's hurry up. The group continued searching for the pagoda that led to a higher level. This time, just having stood on it, Yen Zhaoge had a rough idea. There are traces of other people using it. The remnant aura of power indicated that when the other party had just ascended the pagoda, he was full of vigilance, afraid that the ritual would harm him. So he adopted a defensive posture, rising into the sky through the mechanism, entering the purple clouds and passing through the door of light. Yen Zhaoge and the others arrived at the 4th level of their trip. Just having descended from the pagoda, Yen Zhaoge felt a sense of foreboding arise within his heart. He looked into the distance and saw a few people floating in the sky, moving away from the direction of the pagoda. The other party didn't walk very fast. As he walked, he seemed to be inspecting his surroundings. However, feeling the changes in the pagoda behind them, they immediately swiveled their heads in that direction. Seeing Yen Zhaoge's group, they were slightly taken aback. The 2 of them stared at each other from afar, and the atmosphere was a little awkward. The gazes of Yen Zhaoge, Feng Yunsheng, and the others immediately fell on one of them. While this person clearly wasn't the one with the highest cultivation base amongst them, everyone's gazes still involuntarily fell on her first. She was tall, dressed in red clothes, and a white skirt with a silver fox shawl draped over her shoulders. Her features were flawless, resembling blooming flowers, as she was exceptionally beautiful, drawing the attention of others at first glance, as she became the focal point of the crowd. This woman might not be the most beautiful. At the very least, there were existences who were not inferior to her amongst those whom Yen Zhaoge had seen before. Still, when beauties of the same level stood together, she was likely to be the first to be noticed by bystanders. As compared to Feng Yunsheng, who grew more pleasing to the eye the more one looked at her, this woman was the first to draw one's attention as it shook one's soul. She was a feast for the eyes, a feast for the eyes. Still, aside from that first instant, Yen Zhaoge's focus was on something other than her appearance. For example, her cultivation base. While they had not clashed, this woman clearly had the same habit as Yen Zhaoge in not concealing her aura. Yen Zhaoge roughly observed her. Her cultivation base should be at the third level of the martial saint realm, the late merging avatar stage. She should still have yet to break through space and see true divinity. Still, she was extremely young to the point that even Yen Zhaoge had to look at her rather differently. This was because she was only slightly older than Yen Zhaoge. In other words, her age when she had transcended mortality and entered sainthood would not be much older than when Yen Zhaoge had entered the martial saint realm. She was even younger than Yen Di had been when he had become a martial saint. Of course, Yen Di had always been cultivating in the environment of the Eight Extremities world before this. The martial arts that he cultivated in were also the clear chi profound, art that could hardly be regarded as peak in the world beyond worlds. There were two early seeing divinity martial saints beside this woman. Therefore, it was not likely that she was from the lower worlds, as she should have been from the world beyond worlds. Even so, this woman's cultivation base and speed of improvement could be said to be universally shocking. In comparison to her lifespan at her current cultivation base, to classify her as a young girl would be to call her old. It would still be fine if she merely possessed a high cultivation base at a young age. Still, generally speaking, geniuses who cultivated at shocking speeds would also possess extraordinary combat prowess under most circumstances. This was especially so for experts who had already attained the martial saint realm. Most of them had slaughtered their way through countless bloody battles. So-called geniuses who were lacking in combat prowess would basically have been washed away by the great waves, having perished early on. Yen Zhaoge himself and his father Yen Di were the best examples of this. At this moment, this was similarly being displayed to the point of perfection on this woman. Yen Zhaoge was virtually certain that while this woman was only at the third level of the martial saint realm, her strength stably surpassed that of her fourth-level martial saint companions beside her. She did not rely on her accompanying treasures, instead relying on her bare fists and her own strength. This woman occupied the central position of their group, drawing everyone's attention not just because of her appearance, but also because of her strength. While she did not intentionally display it, her unconcealed aura naturally emanated attention-drawing effect with Yen Zhaoge's current cultivation bases. Observing a group of people, they would naturally first pay attention to the one who posed the greatest threat. Back then, the Northern Ocean clone of the third level of the martial saint realm had been unable to defeat the radiant light sect elder Chung Song of the fourth level of the martial saint realm. Still, as he had unceasingly cultivated in the great wilderness fishrock art and refined the essence blood of the Tao Tai and the essence chi of a true dragon into his body, tempering himself with the King Xian spear, the Northern Ocean clone's combat prowess had risen unceasingly at the same cultivation level. If the Northern Ocean clone had possessed his current quality back then, he would have been able to stably defeat Chung Song. Still, Yen Zhaoge's intuition told him that the current Northern Ocean clone might not be this woman's match at the same cultivation level. Because they had not actually clashed, who knew what special methods the other party had. Therefore, this was still the most conservative estimate. The Northern Ocean clone's current growth had been due to his supreme talent and supreme martial arts, as well as many fortuitous encounters and resources. What kind of background had been able to groom such a heaven's favored daughter? To be continued. Chapter 817. Could she be Fu Ting? Feng Yinsheng asked Yen Zhaoge via sound transmission. As a fellow woman, she also felt dazzled by the other party's beauty. However, like Yen Zhaoge, what she was more concerned about was the fact that the cold sun divine saber had secretly vibrated slightly when facing this woman. This told Feng Yunxing that the other party's strength definitely could not be measured with that of an ordinary expert of the third level of the martial saint realm. Yan Zhaoge answered, "It is very possible, but having not seen her fight with the people beside her, it is still hard to confirm her martial legacy." During his stay at Golden Court Mountain, Yan Zhaoge had naturally inquired more about the current peak experts of the world beyond worlds from Mu Jun, Qin Zhiliang, and the others so as to know himself as well as his enemies. The southeastern Yang Heaven territory itself, as well as the southern blazing Heaven territory that had a grudge with them, were naturally important to understand. Apart from that, Yan Zhaoge was naturally extremely interested in the lofty 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, as well as the central June Heaven territories, Kunlun Mountain. At that level, the knowledge of Mu Jun, Qin Zhiliang, and the others would also be relatively limited. Yan Zhaoge would naturally not be able to directly ask the southeastern Exalt Chao Jie about this. However, while it was limited, Yan Zhaoge and the others still knew some basic information. Mu Jun's knowledge and experience were very extensive. Of the current peak younger generation of the world beyond worlds, the favored sons of heaven, there was a name that Mu Jun mentioned repeatedly: Supreme Red Lotus Fu Ting, transcending mortality and entering sainthood at such a young age. Mu Jun said frankly that of all the people he knew, besides Yan Zhaoge, no one had been faster than Fu Ting. Although she was a woman, she had fought countless battles in her life and had never tasted defeat. She had defeated almost all of her peers, and even those who were much older than her. His powerful strength had crushed countless geniuses and demons, and he was known as the pride of the pride of the pride of the pride. When he was a transcendent martial grandmaster, he defeated a martial saint expert. This was a peerless genius who reigned supreme over all those of the same generation in the entire world beyond worlds, not just limited to a single region or a single cultivation level. Moreover, according to Mu Jun, this woman was an all-rounder. Aside from her shocking martial arts talent and outstanding combat strength, she was also proficient in arrays, alchemy, and artifact forging. It was rumored that Fu Ting was quite knowledgeable in taming spirit beasts. Simply put, he seemed to be a genius who could do well no matter what he did. On top of that, his appearance was outstanding. To her peers, she was as annoying as their neighbor Xiao Ming, who scored 20 points more than them in every exam. She single-handedly suppressed countless geniuses of the same age. The monstrous geniuses who were the center of attention of the world often seemed ordinary when they stood next to her. The simplest example was the 2 seeing divinity martial saints standing beside her. While Yan Zhaoge felt that Fu Ting could stably defeat these 2, this did not mean that he felt that they were weak. On the contrary, these 2 martial practitioners of the 4th level of the martial saint realm were very powerful, true experts, as their strength surpassed that of Cheng Song and Zhang Chao at the same cultivation level. They should be from the same sect as Fu Ting, and the martial arts they practiced were equally exquisite. Their strength was outstanding, and they were the cream of the crop in the same realm. In truth, being able to attain the 4th level of the martial saint realm meant that their talent was similarly extraordinary in the first place. They were supreme geniuses who surpassed countless others of the same generation. Even so, standing before Fu Ting, who was at the 3rd level of the martial saint realm, these 2 people still appeared rather weak, whose voice sounded a little guilty at this time. If it's Fu Ting, isn't that, Yan Zhaoge smiled, the daughter of the Brocade Emperor, who drew back the corners of his lips. In the world beyond worlds, the exalts of 10 territories reigned over the 8 extremities world. Above the exalts of 10 territories were the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors who resided at the central June Heaven territory's new Kunlun Mountain. That was the true core of the world beyond worlds, also the source of this world. The Brocade Emperor, also known as the Brocade Emperor, was one of the current 5 emperors, one of the most powerful bigwigs of the world beyond worlds. The Grand Red Lotus Fu Ting was precisely the Brocade Emperor's only daughter. Having obtained his daughter at an old age, the Brocade Emperor doted on her greatly. Fu Ting had clearly not lost face for him either. In Mu Jun's words, from what he knew before meeting Yan Zhaoge, he had not seen anyone who was more talented than Fu Ting. While the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors and the exalts of 10 territories mostly had disciples, not all of them had descendants. As soon as one appeared, countless pairs of eyes would immediately pay attention to them. Meanwhile, these descendants of the emperors were born with powerful foundations and outstanding martial arts. With abundant resources and outstanding guidance, they would basically all be able to grow up to become dragons and phoenixes among men. While they might not be all that outstanding in terms of character and temperament, they would rarely fail in terms of ability. The son of the southern exalt Zhuang Shun, the Phoenix Prince Zhuang Chaohui, was a classic example. Regardless of his character, he was extremely strong in terms of strength. At the late Seeing Divinity stage, he was able to challenge an immortal bridge martial saint barehanded, as compared to a 3rd-level martial saint facing off against a 4th-level martial saint. The difficulty was undoubtedly much higher. In the world beyond worlds, besides the southeastern exalt Chao Jie, Zhuang Chaohui was likely the strongest martial practitioner of the same cultivation level that Yan Zhaoge had personally encountered. At the same cultivation level, there was only the Shadow Mountain Sword King Lin, Han Hua, who might be able to battle him. Kong Ping could give it a try if it was anyone else, but he would most likely be inferior. In the world beyond worlds, however, virtually everyone thought that Fu Ting would be able to defeat Zhuang Chaohui at the same cultivation level. As Mu Jun discussed this, he retracted his smile slightly as he said very earnestly, barring any major accidents, Fu Ting will definitely become another female emperor in the future. The female emperor was one of the 5 emperors alongside Fu Ting's father, the Brocade Emperor. This was basically the common understanding of the world beyond worlds, as well as everyone's expectations of Fu Ting. The 3 sovereigns had all expressed their attention towards Fu Ting. Therefore, when such a young female expert had suddenly appeared before them, the first guess that popped up in the minds of Yan Zhaoge, Feng Yunsheng, and who was that it was Fu Ting. And the truth proved that their guess was not wrong. Kunlun Mountain's ingenious flying peaks, Red Lotus Cliffs, Fu Ting. How do I address these friends? Which world do you hail from? That red-clothed, white-robed woman walked over from afar, asking. The people beside her followed Fu Ting back, walking back to the vicinity of the pagoda once more. Fu Ting gazed at Yan Zhaoge. Like her, Yan Zhaoge did not intentionally release his aura. Still, he did not restrain it either. This allowed others to easily discern his cultivation base and true age. When the two were combined, even Fu Ting and the other ingenious Flying Peak disciples felt shocked. Without actually clashing, it was hard to judge Yan Zhaoge's actual strength. Still, Fu Ting vaguely had the feeling that the man before her was the same type of person as her. Is this his true age? Or has he faked it through some other method? Fu Ting thought, if it is his true age, it would be impossible for me not to know that such a figure has appeared in the world beyond worlds. Unless he was not of the world beyond worlds at all. It was very rare for such an outstanding figure to appear in the lower worlds. Then, of the prime, clear, direct lineage, this was the first thought that flashed through Fu Ting's mind. Still, her heart soon jolted slightly as she recalled something. Yan Zhaoge now laughed lightly. I am surnamed Yan Zhaoge. I have mainly been moving about the southeastern Yang Heaven territory of the world beyond worlds recently. Fu Ting raised her brows slightly. You are Yan Zhaoge?